Folks, this is the AM News Bulletin on the AM Show. Let's begin from the aftermath of election 2024. And the Electoral Commission has expanded the re-collation of electoral results to 9 constituencies. At a press conference to address issues concerning the results of some outstanding constituencies, Chairperson of the EC, Jean Mensah, says re-collated results of 3 constituencies, that is Suhum, Akwetia and Fantiakwa North, will be accepted. James Aveji will tell us more.
The Electoral Commission, in its latest address, has rejected the coalition, a result of 9 different constituencies. You recall that the NDC and NPP have dragged the commission to court, with the NDC in particular asking for a rerun of the elections in the Nsawa Midrejiri constituency. The commission chair, Jean Mensah, has been explaining the situation under which some of these constituencies' results have been collated.
Our staff have been threatened, and the established collation processes, as guided by law, have been disrupted, and winners have been declared without due processes governing collation being followed. In a number of instances, our staff have been threatened with death and forced to declare outcomes without adhering to the processes governing collation.
Although accepting the electoral result of Suhum, Akwetia and Fantiakwa North constituencies, the EC chair explains reasons why the 9 other constituencies, including the embattled Nsawa Midrejiri constituency results, cannot be accepted.
In Tema Central, the DEO again was threatened, and he was forced to declare results using 146 polling stations instead of 148. The commission would not uphold that declaration. In Domi Kwabenya, there's some contention with 3 polling station results, and the commission is carrying out its own investigation with the 3 polling station results.
The EC is asking the president and the president-elect, including the National Election Security Task Force, to provide a safe place for the re-coalition.
We therefore use this occasion to humbly call on the President of Ghana, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, as well as our President-elect, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, to intervene in this matter so as to ensure that the commission is provided with the necessary security and protection to carry out its functions.
The EC, however, is silent on the cases pending in court as to whether they would wait for the conclusion of those cases before they proceed with the coalition. They have also not been able to address the specifics of the electoral materials that have been burnt in a fire outbreak that happened in the last 3 days. From the EC headquarters here in Accra, my name is James Aveji for Joy News.
Now, President-elect John Dramani Mahama has criticized the outgoing government for attempting to create an overly optimistic narrative about the economy as their tenure comes to an end. Speaking after the Canadian High Commissioner to Ghana, Miriam Montrat, paid a courtesy call on him, he expressed deep concerns about a $2.5 billion debt burden in the energy sector. He warned that without urgent intervention, the energy sector could face total collapse, describing it as a critical area the outgoing NPP administration has mismanaged. Here's more.
The energy sector is another area in which this outgoing administration has mismanaged in a major way. They've kept the lights on at the expense of accruing a very huge debt. That debt is being audited, and so far we're looking at $2.5 billion. And so not paying the producers of energy, just piling on the debt, and paying other things that are not as critical as paying down the energy sector debt. ECG has a very poor governance record, and aside from that, its losses are so huge. Technical and commercial losses, about 32%. I don't see any utility that can run with 32% commercial and technical losses and be able to continue to survive. And yet the little money that comes should be prioritized in paying those who provided the electricity. Instead, they take a chunk of it and use it to import crude oil. They're more interested in supplying crude oil than exploiting our upstream, where we have a lot of gas, so that we can provide cheaper gas. If we could cover our energy production with 100% gas, that will save us in excess of $1 billion every year. And yet, they've driven all the upstream people out. He and I went and took refuge in Côte d'Ivoire.
President-elect John Dramani Mahama also dispelled claims that the Operation Recover All Loot Committee, that is the Oral Committee, is a tool for political witch hunting. His remarks come amid concerns from some groups that the committee's investigations will unfairly target individuals, particularly members of the outgoing administration.
I announced the preparatory committee, and I think people are misunderstanding it. We're receiving a lot of information on things that are going wrong, or things, corruption scandals and all that. Some send me texts on my phone, some call me, others pass through other people. We want a focal point where all that evidence is directed, and so that they can assemble that evidence. And once we come into office, Oral is not going to be investigating people. It's going to gather the evidence and pass on that evidence to the government institutions that are geared, supposed to do that kind of work. And so we just want that if people have any information that they think is useful in the fight against corruption, pass it on to this team. That's what the team is about. And they're all doing that service pro bono. They're not expecting any payment. There's no expenditure or budget associated with the task that they're carrying out. And so that's the explanation for it.
In other stories, Finance Minister Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam has warned he risks jail term if he refuses to put the mini budget before Parliament. The Finance Minister has been absent from Parliament for 4 days in a row, leaving the budget for the first quarter of next year in limbo. Now, speaking on the floor of the House, Minority Leader Dr. Kesulatu Forson warned Dr. Amin Adam to be mindful of his duties or risk severe punishment.
The expenditure in advance of appropriations for January to March 2025, Mr. Speaker, can be laid by any member on behalf of the Minister responsible for Finance. Mr. Speaker, copies are before us. I have a copy. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure you also have a copy. And I think this is not the presentation itself. It's laying of papers. Mr. Speaker, there are occasions, instances that papers have been laid on behalf of a Minister of State. In the same vein, we have a Minister for Tourism before us. Mr. Speaker, he is the available leader, and he's a Minister for Tourism, a Cabinet Minister. Mr. Speaker, I urge him to lay it on behalf of the Minister responsible for Finance. But if you don't want to do it, I can do it on your behalf. Mr. Speaker, I also want to convey to the Minister and His Excellency the President that the Constitution places an obligation on the President to present to this House before the year ends expenditure in advance of appropriation for the first 3 months of the year 2025. And this is Article 80. Mr. Speaker, aside that, the PFM Act, the Public Financial Management Act, places a responsibility on the Finance Minister to act on behalf of the President to present the estimate before us. And there are severe penalties for not doing it. There are severe penalties for not doing it, including a jail term. Severe penalties. So I just want to caution those in office to be aware of the constitutional provision and also to be aware of the PFM Act.
And now, but the majority side have been explaining that the minister will be in the House today to submit the document.
Appropriation on account
from January to March 2025. It's an important document. The finance minister ought to do that on behalf of the president. The finance minister have given indication that he's ready to do that, but he's unavailable, absent at the moment. So tomorrow it can be laid and taken, but for us to say that a different minister should do that, this is very important document. Without authorization, neither does he have any indication to do so. Mr. Speaker, as a deputy majority whip, I can say that I have had that conversation, and the finance minister will do that tomorrow.
You had a conversation with the president?
Yes, and that will be, the indication is that tomorrow.
I don't want us to come tomorrow and we are told that I don't have authority to do 1, 2, 3. Then you are the same leaders who say you don't want us to sit on Saturday. And tomorrow is Friday. If we don't do that, it means that this item might not be taken by the House before we transit to the next government. And you know, it's very easy to do it. The next government can come on the next day if they come and present it, and the House will have to work on it, and it is done. And you will be setting a very bad precedent. You know, you'll be setting a very bad precedent, and it's not for your health.
Still on the matter, the majority sought to blame the NDC for the delay and were shut down by the Speaker. What really happened? Let's take a look.
Today, we are talking and reminding each other about the law. We should do that. We had come, the majority had recalled Parliament purposely to do this. But we were rather busy fighting about who become minority and majority. So tomorrow it will be done, Mr. Speaker.
You are aware that the House had to be adjourned sine die because you boycotted sitting. Yesterday and 2 days ago, in my absence, you people made those statements as if either the Speaker or it's rather the minority that caused the delay in the presentation of this item. That is untrue. You know what happened. Because for good reason, we don't usually want to disclose so many things to the public. So please, don't push us to the corner. We'll be compelled to come in defense. And that will not be good for you. When I say you, I mean the new patriotic party and its future. I'm very clear in my mind about this. Don't push me to say things.
That there is the Speaker of Parliament. Now, in other stories, the 2024 flag bearer of the New Patriotic Party, Dr. Mamudu Bawumia, has suggested that their campaign faced a significant communication disadvantage during the December 7th presidential election, largely due to the National Democratic Congress's dominance of key traditional media outlets. Speaking to NPP communicators at his residence yesterday for the very first time since the December 7th election, Dr. Mamudu Bawumia acknowledged the party's efforts during the campaign, but noted that the media imbalance hindered their electoral strategy. Yes, more.
It was a big disappointment. There's no doubt about it when the results came. Why was it a disappointment? Because all the work we had done was pointing to the fact that we would win this election. There was clear evidence on the ground as we went to all the 276 constituencies. It was clear that, we were going to do well. But on the day of the election, something was amiss. Turnout was so low, and everybody was wondering what was happening. Why? Where are people? I must say, like I said, we worked very hard in the campaign. I must tell you that I'm very proud of the communication team. Very, 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 very proud. We did very well. You did an excellent job. I must congratulate you. We dominated the NDC in social media. By far. by far, very, very clearly. And we were working against their ownership of or support from key media houses, isn't it? You know, so which put that at a disadvantage in many ways in terms of the communication field, because we had a lot of these key media houses who were not on our side. And so we had to, but you fought very hard any time you had the opportunity. I've been following the communications very closely over the campaign because I wanted to know how things were going across the space.
Let's do some other stories now. The Accident Victim Support Ghana is expressing concerns over the increase in number of road crashes recorded in 2024. According to the organization that is focused on giving care to accident victims, the number of distress calls received this year increased to an average of 13 per day compared to the 9 received in 2023. A situation they say is worrying. Executive Director of the NGO, Juliet Osei-Krantain, made this revelation at a prayer and awareness creation campaign at the VIP station in Accra. Prince Kwame Kuduga has more in the following report.
According to data from the National Road Safety Authority, 1,237 people died from road crashes between January and June 2024 and 7,561 sustained injuries within the same period. Executive Director of the Accident Victim Support Ghana, Juliet Osei-Krantain, says the situation is worrying.
Our office received a minimum of 13 calls for help. A minimum of 13 compared to last year, we're receiving about 9, 10 buff. Yes, 13 calls a day. A minimum of 13 calls a day. That is what we receive. And it includes those who are in distress. That is our main source of worry now.
Road safety campaigner Reverend Cyril Crab urged drivers to be extra cautious, especially during the Christmas festivities, to avoid a surge in road accidents.
Going into this festive season, yes, we are praying, but we must also be on the lookout for these things. One, we need to maintain our cars. Overspeeding is another cause, because for cashing in, drivers will want to overspeed on our roads, to rush in and rush out. This is the time that you don't even have to think of rushing in, because you will still make your money. You will still make your cash. And so don't think because you want to cash in, because there are people in town, you want to rush and then drop them and come back. Take your time, rest, have car maintenance, lower your speed, and we are good to go.
Drivers who took part in the session spoke to Joy News.
I would advise them, drive tired is not good. Christmas is coming. You make sure you go slowly, you come slowly. When you are tired, tell the car when I'm tired, I'm giving to my friend a spare driver to go and come. So that next year we can see the driver. You're a car when I can see your car and your friend. So they need to be slow down and patient on the road.
Prayers were said against road accidents on Ghanaian roads ahead of the Christmas holidays. Prince Kwame Kuduga's report for Joy News.
Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. On our roads, Jesus, taking advantage. Jesus of purpose. Holy Ghost, taking advantage. Jesus of bad road. Holy Ghost, taking advantage. Holy Ghost, of sport. Jesus of traffic light. Jesus, Lord, the Holy Ghost, we come again.
Coming up next is Business Update, anchored by Benjamin Akakpo.
Welcome back. Time now for our news review right here on the AM show. And I'm telling you about the most epic deals of the year being here. Get the best prices on premium brands like, you know what, Samsung, LG, TCL, HP, Lenovo, Dell, Midea, NASCO, Tecno, Infinix, ITEL, and many more. We can also talk about laptops, desktops, printers, TVs, air conditioners, fridges, home theaters, CCTVs, and many more. You can also get to win instant gifts and cash prizes up to 2,000 Ghana cedis just for answering a simple question this December at where? Compu Ghana. Yeah, they brought Christmas home. So all you have to do now, visit your nearest Compu Ghana branch nationwide or shop online at www.compu.com. compugana.com. You can also reach them on 0302 752 020 to make your inquiries. Merry Christmas from all of us at CompuGhana.
Merry Christmas to you. Guys, have you thought of an ideal Christmas present yet? Well, make it a Syntex tank. It's the perfect Christmas present in all homes. Now, this Christmas, gift a Syntex tank to your family to give your family access to clean water. It's not just for Christmas, it's for a lifetime. No matter where you are in the country, you can simply call 0244 335 168 and we will make it happen. Don't make it rice or oil, that's too normal. Make it a Syntex tank. Syntex tank is strong, air tough. Did I say Merry Christmas already? Well, let's introduce our guest to you this morning and get the conversation going. Osajefo Kwame Nkrumah Botsio is in the studio. He's General Secretary of the CPP. Osajefo, what is saying?
Yeah.
Like you.
Merry Christmas to you and your cherished viewers.
Actually, let me say Merry Christmas to you and then you say Happy Birthday to me.
Oh, wow. Happy birthday.
I'm
I didn't know
obsessed
that.
with it. I don't know. Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Okay. Benjamin Akaku.
Well, good to have you in the studio.
Good to
and hopefully we'll have Prof joining the conversation. But let's kick-start it from the standpoint of your thoughts for us this morning. I see you've been writing copious notes. It's
Yes,
a thesis
yes.
you are putting together. What do you have for us this morning?
I have, it's because today is unique. I actually have two quick things on my mind instead of one.
So let's get into them.
I'll be very quick.
Time is good.
And I would want to commend the incoming president on the selection of the able team for oral. They are very competent.
This no be English oral. This be proper oral.
Yes, yes. You know, Honorable Ablakwa, I worked with my University of Ghana when I was press secretary. He was on my committee, very competent. Martin and ACP Kofi Boachi.
Yeah.
I know them from law school. Domelevo is actually my neighbor. He goes jogging in front of my house, and Raymond Archer. These are very competent people in their own right, and I know that they'll do a good job. And I hope they go beyond the outgoing government to investigate as much corruption as possible, even beyond other NDC eras, other parties, all the way back to the immediate post-independence era, because I know that they have it. I mean, these people are very passionate about anti-corruption. And however, I'm very concerned about the lack of gender balance, because I know that the NDC has a lot of good women there. Right. And I hope that going forward, they would have at least 50%, if possible, of the various bodies being constituted by women. And quickly, the second one is about the jailing of the young man.
It's only for Makosan,
Yes, as a juvenile, I don't want to mention his name. But I think that we also have to reform our juvenile
he's going
justice.
to the Senior Correctional Center.
Yes.
I believe it's the one in Roman Ridge.
Yes,
for 6 months.
For 6 months.
And I hear there have been some fines as well of the parents, from what I hear.
Yes, I think that we should reform our juvenile justice, our juvenile sentencing system. I think 6 months is a bit inadequate for what's happened. And going forward, I hope that the Law Reform Commission and the various bodies will take a look at this to see what can be done about it. Those are the things at the top of my mind.
Well, I have some thoughts on that very quickly before we get into the papers. The juvenile system is what it is. And like you said, if we want to tweak it, we might have to. You know, sometimes the law may come across as being a bit funny, curious, but it is the letter of it, depending on who is involved, that the courts would have to, you know, and in this instance, the juvenile court would have to apply. Yeah. It's sad from both angles for the boy's family, Salifu Amwako, and especially for the families who lost their children. One of the funerals was done in my parish, and that day, I mean, it was a really sad matter. So I guess lessons to be learned from both ends. But let's quickly get into the papers. Sweetie Abochi, let's start with your paper.
I have the Daily Guide, and I'm looking at the face of my former boss in front of the paper. Kwame Blake.
That's the Daily Guide newspaper.
That's the Daily Guide newspaper. Right. So Sino Africa's land grab claims baseless, according to Kwame Blake. Present budget or risk jail. Minority leader is sounding a word of caution to the finance minister. Nana grants 14 colleges university charter and protect us to recollate 9 outstanding results. The EC appeals, and it was in our news bulletin this morning. She appealed to the Election Security Task Force. She appealed to the President-elect John Dramani Mahama. And let's wait and see how that pans out. But let's get into the paper and get into the story. Of course, Kwame Nkrumah, the story started with Talifa Mako's son is here, jailed 6 months. Parents fined 12,000 Ghana cedis. I think it was 6,000 each. So yeah, together 12,000 Ghana cedis. Right. So the director of tax Terraform Development Limited, a Ghanaian company duly incorporated to carry out infrastructural and construction projects, Kwame Blay, has refuted strongly claims of land grabbing made against him by Sino Africa, a company owned by Joseph Siao Ejapong of Zoom Lion. And the company, in a series of media publications I've chanced on some myself, alleged that Mr. Blay is using his political connections to unlawfully grab a 29-acre land belonging to them in the Boteman area of Accra. Please put a pin in that, I'll come to you. Just to give our audience some context, the juvenile son of Archbishop Elisha Salifo Mwako has been convicted and sentenced to 6 months incarceration at the Senior Correctional Center over the East Legon accident, which claimed the lives of 2 12-year-olds. Protect us to recollate 9 outstanding results, the EC appeals. The Electoral Commission has appealed to President Akufo-Addo and President-elect John Dramani Mahama to help provide them the necessary security to enable them recollate 9 outstanding parliamentary results out of that 12 constituencies that were halted due to disruptions during the December 7th elections. And according to Jean Mensah, the presence of hundreds of party supporters who besieged its collation centers brought proceedings to a standstill in a number of these centers during the December 7th election. The Yuletide is here. I'm excited about that. Putting the cart before the horse. This is the last story I'll do, and then I'll come to you, gentlemen. Nana grants 14 colleges university charter. 14 existing university colleges in the country have been granted their charters to become full-blown universities. They include Academic City University, a university college in Hacho, Accra, CAF University College, Fete Kakraba, Entrance University College of Health Sciences, Spintex Accra. There's also Garden City University College, Kenyasi Kumasi Family Health University College in Teshi, Accra, Ensign Global College in Kpong, and Trivos Institute for Biomedical Science and Technology in Lashibi, Accra. So these university colleges have now been granted the charters to become full-blown universities. Kwame Nkrumah, these are, I think, 4 stories for your quick reflections.
But maybe let's quickly acknowledge Professor Isaac Wedi, who also joins the conversation. Thank you, sir, for joining.
Good morning.
Coming all the way from, not directly from UPSA, but of the UPSA.
Yeah.
Anyway, good to have you.
Good to see you.
Kwame Nkrumah, back to you.
Yes, I would want to start with the story you spoke of present budget or risk jail.
Yes.
I think it's quite an important call because I was listening to my own good friend, Honorable Roxanne Dafiamapo on air. And it looks like it is imperative that these things are done by the government before they leave office. Whether it is a government which is not going to be in power in the coming year, or it's a government that is going to continue. And I think that the finance minister is in a position to comply, and I would urge him to comply.
He actually will be in Parliament today.
That's
what they say.
Minority leader has threatened that if he doesn't stick to the letter of the law, he could face jail.
Exactly. And I know that he will comply because, you know, sometimes around this time, governments are known as, I think it's a lame, what was the term?
Lame duck.
Lame duck. So they tend to be a bit unsure. Are they in power? Are they not in power? And the incoming government too can sometimes exert some pressure, which can confuse them a bit. Now, to EC scraps results in 9 constituencies. I saw some of the footage with some of the declarations, and indeed, they seem to have been done under duress and at the threat of people's lives. We know a few people too lost their lives. I think 1 or 2 of them were EC officials. So I can understand why the EC is making this call for those results to be scrapped. However, I also heard some calls that as at 11 p.m. to midnight on the election day, NDC and NPP already had collated everything. So we should rely on what they have.
What they have is the pink sheets from the various polling stations.
Yes,
so the argument is that if you have the pink sheets, you don't need to recollate, you know, and all that. Yeah. So.
And I think it's a good call, and I think the NDC and the NPP should comply, because failing which, there may be a need to conduct those elections again. So it is a good call by the EC. And also regarding the Sino-Africa, I think it's 39 acres of land grabbed.
29.
29. I think it should also be investigated. I'm not preempting.
Yeah,
I'm not preempting anything, but we all know that the history of this country, especially with people in government and people related to them, we always have situations where people try to use the government machinery in order to unjustly claim some properties for themselves. So it's a good call, and it should be investigated.
Okay.
And what was the fourth story?
Some university colleges now, you know, receiving charters to become full-blown universities, and I listed them. About 14 colleges of universities receiving their charter.
I think it's also a good call.
All right.
And there are some great ones in there, including Academic City University College, which is now becoming Academic City University. Someone I actually know, Professor Mark Bagonluri, is doing a fantastic job there. Before I come to you, Prof, though, Kwame Nkrumah.
Yes.
You talk about not being sure whether they are in power or not. The current administration has stated, especially when it comes to tax waivers and stuff, that they are still in power.
Exactly. Exactly.
There's no illusion.
Exactly.
By the Constitution, it is clear. You are in power.
Yes.
There's no such thing as are we in power?
Yes.
Are we not? Because you don't want to create a vacuum in the system.
Exactly.
You know what that could lead to?
Yes.
Chaos.
Exactly.
So there's no dispute about who is in power.
It's a good point.
It's
a good
point in time. Prof, good morning. Welcome aboard.
When there's a shift in power, this is what happens. I don't know who is in power, but I'm sure they are in power. Good morning to you.
They know, pa. Everybody knows. We'll be in the level. Any quick thoughts for us before you get into some of the stories?
With respect to the story.
I mean, if you had any, thoughts you wanted to share before you get into the.
Well, I think not that as I'm aware of, but we can't go into the stories.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's get into the stories.
Well, I think the one we presented, present 2025 mini budget.
Yes.
Or risks a J-term.
Yeah, minority leaders sounding a word of caution to the finance minister because he'd already missed some appearances already. So they were saying that if he doesn't come before Parliament to present that budget, he risks facing some jail term.
I believe yesterday was the third time that he had not showed up.
But majority said...
And that was after the assurance given by Oseiche Mensah-Bonsu that he would show up. Then we heard from Habib as well yesterday.
Well, I think a call in that direction is fine, but the word looks too strong. Risks a jail term. That's why I'm a bit worried. Two, I think when we refer to budgets, sometimes we have to be careful the way we use budget because they are all estimates. They are called estimates. If those estimates are not approved, you can't say it's a budget. Budget is only when the estimates are approved. Yeah. You say it's a budget. So we can look at that issue well.
Okay.
I don't know the reason why the finance minister for 4 consecutive times have not appeared. Maybe we should 3 times. We should probe into that and find out because no government can operate without a budget.
But Prof, they have said that the budget is there. It's ready.
So I don't know why it's not presented.
And that is why Dr. Kasilato Forson is saying, you know that you risk jail time. I mean, Dr. Kasilato Forson himself has had his day in court. So he knows the consequences of some actions if they are wrong. And of course, he came out whistle clean. But the point being that there are stipulations per the law. Like, you remember when, and I found it so reckless, when the Nsawam Eduajiri MP was saying, hold the transitional process until, these cases are sorted. Do you remember?
Yeah.
In his constituency and all of that?
Yeah.
That was reckless coming from a lawmaker, but even more reckless because if anybody, and of course the president would never do that, being a lawyer himself, if anybody tries to stall the process of transition because they feel like it, that actually is in direct contravention to the law. You can't, there are some things that no matter how you feel, you can't do it. Trump couldn't refuse after Mike Pence had put pen to paper to hand over power. But what he could do was, for the first time in a long while, refuse to be at the inauguration of Joe Biden. That he could do, but he couldn't refuse to let the process of transition take place. There's a difference. So in this instance, look at the consequences of what this would be. Public sector workers, investors, first 3 months of the year. It doesn't lie in anybody's bosom to decide, I feel like it, I don't feel like it. Yes, there may be parliamentary tit for tat, and I'll talk about it in my blunt thoughts, but you have no leeway. If they want, they can go ahead and do that. And the consequences, the chips will fall where they will.
If my submission feeds into your narrative, that there's no way a minister will say, I won't go to Parliament to go and present the budget, the mini budget.
But I've heard people on the MPP side, I don't know whether it was Dr. Amin Adam, but I've heard people talk about, but when we also wanted, and they were dragging their feet, now it is time for, in Parliament yesterday, and they are pushing, because, ask yourself, if the MPP were going to be retained in power, or had been retained in power, would this be happening?
So I think I'll be the last person to say that we should put pressure on this current administration. We should remove all the impediments, allow the present administration to run. If you don't present a budget, the country cannot run. What about investors, as you said? What about other public sector workers who have to be paid over a period of time? So maybe we need to find out why he has, on 3 occasions, have not been to Parliament. And that should be very important that we do. We don't need to go to this full forcing you to come to Parliament to come and present your mini estimate. So I think it's a good call. But that way should not, I think, but there are legal and constitutional issues regarding budget. And if you don't do that, he knows the implications. If he fails to go to Parliament I'm sure he's aware. Maybe by close of today or next week, I think we should be able to get him to Parliament to come and present. Other than that, the government cannot run. We should not place impediments on the new administration. We allow them to work.
Right. Okay. Let's get into other papers now. I think, Kwame Nkrumah, you have a Daily Analyst?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The Daily Analyst has some interesting stories. One of them is oral not witch hunting entity.
Yeah.
Hama assures. We all know about the past of this country where we've had a lot of witch hunting. There was a time when even having a video deck was a crime, or having more than 50,000 CDs in your account. So I'm glad.
Come a long way, eh?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
So I'm glad His Excellency President Mahama has come out clearly to say that, because that is a fear of many people. Because you know that when it comes to investigations, it should be evidence-based. You should have a reasonable suspicion. You don't just go after every member of the previous administration and try and find something, try and seize phones. I have to be blunt, even when the outgoing government came into power, I had to defend a few people who were summoned to various places. And they were ordered to surrender their phones. And I resisted it. Sometimes there's no evidence against you. They're like, we have an order to seize your phone. Then they go through your phone in order to. So I'm glad His Excellency has come out.
Okay.
They shouldn't do what has been done in the past, where you go fishing for evidence. And there's also a very interesting story about MPP group calls for immediate dissolution of NEC. And I'm always concerned about such stories as they touch on the internal workings of political parties. And there's one paragraph that caught my attention. That's a concerned patriots. They said they urge the leadership to immediately reinstate all dismissed members and form a reconciliation committee. As much as I'm not MPP, I think it's a call in the right direction. However, asking for the dissolution of NEC, I believe they should be patient to find out the root cause of the election loss, because sometimes this could also constitute acting out of emotion rather than based on empirical evidence.
Okay.
And then we also have very great stories like, despite the stereotype, democracy endures in Africa. Before this election, we all heard what was going to happen, how the country was going to blow up, how the various embassies were concerned. But look at what we have now. It wasn't a perfect election, but I think we should all be proud of ourselves that it was relatively peaceful, and we still stand as an example to not only African countries, but worldwide, because look at Europe now. Europe, that is always advising us. They are the ones up in flames at the moment. And then...
but a quick point on that. One thing we really have to eschew in our elections, moving forward, people dying in our elections.
Yes.
We must find a way of making that end.
Exactly.
In 2028, people died. In 2024, people are dying. People have died. People have suffered injuries people have been chased and shot. What is it? You express your opinion. I express my opinion. Maybe you differ from me in opinion. What is it? Why do we have to kill people over that?
That is true. And I'm glad you brought it up. I was at a CDD and Codeo seminar, I think yesterday or 2 days ago. And one retired EC official, he said he's been observing elections since 1978, and that people died in our elections is only a recent phenomena. So that means we have to be very careful about how we do things, because we know that things are relatively more peaceful now. We don't have coup d'etats and all that. But even in the days of coup d'etats and other things, our elections were peaceful. But now that we pride ourselves on being peaceful, something as simple as elections, we have this. So I think it's a good call. We need to be careful and then look into that.
Okay, another paper. Prof, do you want to get into yours before
we
circle back to
the Republic Press? I don't know why this should be a story, but I have it quite interesting. Akufo-Addo's statue repaired. When I got up, I thought we were going to talk about.
Well, reactions were pouring in when we saw that it had been vandalized, so perhaps they're just giving us an update.
Yeah, I think it's Akufo-Addo's statue repaired. This has been a point of contention among residents in Takoradi for some time now. I think on the 6th November or so when it was constructed. There's been a lot of issues. Residents have come up with a lot of concern that whilst we are having an interchange to be constructed, Market Square to be built and all that, why do you go ahead and go and put your statue? There are times we may have major issues in the country for us to solve. For me, when I saw this, the phase it was constructed, I had my heart in my mouth. I don't know what to say.
Why?
Well, at a point, I felt that there were a lot of projects that should have been focused on in terms of construction and the rest. And I tend to share with the sentiment of those people in that area that, well, we are being started with issues on the Market Square not completed. And then the other ones are.
In fact, the place itself had not been completed.
Yeah, so the focus should have been on that for now. And I'm sure that was the reason why a lot of people were not happy with what happened. But again, why do we even go and destroy this? Even if there was a mistake. Everyone will have his own opinion. Now we have to invest huge sums of money to repair this.
Huge sums of money?
I don't know how much the cost, but then once it's repaired, of course, it will attract some capital outlay. We have to use money to do that.
Okay.
And
I would have argued that it's insignificant because it was just, I think, the back leg or so.
Even in one city.
I get your point.
And there are lots of things that after the election, we've seen a lot of buildings that have been set ablaze and all that.
Right.
It's time for us to stop some of this. You may not agree with this, but then you don't need to spend so much money trying to repair this again. That's
Prof, quick one. Vandalizing the statue, completely wrong. You don't know. I always say that you must be able to, it's like that person who said, I may disagree with you, but I'll do everything possible to defend your right to be able to say what you think, right? Yeah. Though I disagree vehemently with you. I disagree with such projects, and I'll explain why. But the fact that you disagree with the fact that the president, maybe you don't like how he's run the country and all of that, so why do I have to see him every time I use this roundabout? It's not your problem. It's not your right to go and take it down. There are processes. In fact, if you remember when Gandhi, his statue was set up at the University of Ghana, and people said, no, there are these traces of racism and all of that from back when. There were processes to be followed before that statue would be taken down. You can't go and say, because I disagree, I'm vandalizing the statue. You could get arrested.
That's wrong.
So don't correct what you think is a wrong with another wrong. However, I recall former President Rawlings, may his soul rest in peace. He was vehement. Do you remember? There were even attempts by this administration to name certain schools, universities after him. He said, no, I don't want it. I don't know, but I think there's this narcissism and self-glorification in our politicians. From, and I'm sorry to say this, because I respect him a lot, from former President Kufuor with his gold chain and everything, to these statues. You know what? If you will be celebrated as a leader, be celebrated after your work is done and gone. And those who come after you, acknowledge what you've done and put this or that there. Don't, and some may say, but it's not Kufuor himself who did it. It is the whatever. Please, we all know how these things work. Let's not even play those, puerile games and all of that. That is my simple bit. Someone suggested that there was a great footballer, I've forgotten the name, who hailed from that region, and that some suggest that it would have been more fitting for him to be there. But again, it's different strokes for different folks. People think differently. I don't have a problem with Kufuor's statue being there, apart from the fundamental problem of, while you are in power and certain things, I feel they are unnecessary.
Any other story before we go to Ben? Prof, is there any other story apart from the statue?
Salinfu's Makon's son, but sometimes quite sensitive, because parents of these two kids watching to see the 6-month jail term for this boy. I don't know what will be going on this moment. Quite sensitive. I'm not a lawyer. My good friend happens to be a lawyer, and I don't know whether the son merits the 6 months with the gravity of crime or whatever.
I think it's too small, eh?
Well, it will be difficult for me to judge. They can consider or look at that. But for me, we want to encourage the parents at this moment, because they are still in their state of grieving and all that. It's quite heavy. I mean, this is swallow. I mean, yeah.
For one of them, that was their only child.
You see, it's a tough, difficult time for them, and we pray to God for more grace for them. But with respect to the judgment, difficult for me to comment on the judgment, because I'm the lawyer. I don't know what went into the calculations, and 2 kids and then 6 months. Difficult to judge.
What do you say, lawyer?
Well, as I said before, the judges' hands were tied, because the juvenile justice system has its recommended sentences, which the judge cannot go beyond. That's why I'm calling for reform, because if you look at the UK and other places, I think there was the Venables incident where many years ago these 2 young boys lured a 2-year-old boy to a railroad and killed him. I think it was John Venables and Terry Venables.
I think I don't remember the details of. And
I think they were sentenced to life imprisonment. But it was a very long
drawn.
As much as these boys were very young, I think they were less than 10 or just about 10 and 11 for killing a 2 or 3-year-old boy. They had this, sentence. So we have to take another look at our sentencing system. I don't blame the judge, because the judge has to do it within the law. But we can look at reforming. I think the incident is a wake-up call for us to reform our juvenile justice system. We also had the Kaswa incident where the 2 boys the
10-year-old.
Exactly. Even though these things they don't happen often. When they happen, they are very extreme and very gruesome. So we have to look at our our sentencing system.
The sentencing regime, like I mentioned earlier, you see, sometimes when these things come into the public space, people react a certain way, but judges can only act within what the penal code, whether for juveniles or for adults, says they can do. They can't operate outside of that. So even if the judge thinks maybe this deserves a stiffer punishment, he is not allowed to do anything outside of the penal code. That is a problem, which is why Kwame Nkrumah is calling.
And even that risks a mistrial. And in the end, the accused can get off with nothing, because it would look as if there was some bias. So the judge did a good job, and I mean, that was a maximum sentence under the surrounding.
Well, that's a maximum.
Should we also look at our age of reason per the law? Because I've always said that, by the Catholic Church, it's 7 years. We believe that at 7, a child, has the understanding of right and wrong. But when it comes to our law books, it's different. I think it's 12 or something like that.
I think so. But even when it comes to age of consent, it's 16, and the boy is 16. So
consent is, I don't know.
I know it's different.
I'm using age of reason, rationally you know that this thing that I'm doing is wrong and this one is right. So as for the consent, but that's another issue altogether.
I have to look at the age of reason, but I know that for our juvenile justice system, it's if you are 18 and below, then you are considered to be a minor. So certain actions, you are not deemed to take full responsibility for it.
Talking about consent and, justice brings to mind this Giselle Pellicot months-long trial in France that has shocked everyone. A man who solicited dozens, I think 50 or so men to rape his wife. And I want to salute the bravado of this woman, because she could have opted to, keep the trial, anonymous or so, but she chose to make it public, and her face is all over the place. And some people are not satisfied with the verdict. Some people receive 13 years, and some much, much lesser, than that. And when I read the story, it was horrifying that your husband can actually drug you, solicit for strangers to come into your home and rape you. Anyways, I don't know whether they'll get to ever see this, but I think that's something we should I salute her. It was a very brave thing she did, to put her face out there, to demand that justice be served. And finally, all these 50 men who were involved have been sentenced.
But then I think we still need more education. Today, I've just been told that was a maximum sentence per the Constitution.
Right.
So there are times those who are non-lawyers, we should be educated so that when we see or hear some of these sentences, we will not be alarmed that it's too small. This is what the Constitution says, between 6, I think 4 months or so. As weather will change, we go to the Catholic way, 7 years, you know that you are adult, you can reason for yourself. So I think a lot of education will do in this regard.
Anyway.
Ben?
Well, I saw the story and I wondered whether you would do it. GIS debunks $240 million e-gate system cost claim. Would you like to briefly get into that story? Maybe a bit of detail on page 4, and then you can share your thoughts on it.
I think I've not gone through that story very well. But if you...
It's on page 4.
It's on page 4. I've not gone through that story. But I'll be interested in what you're coming to talk about here. In fact, I've not gone through. If we can go around and then I can pick a few.
So you can just read a bit. I wanted you to...
GIS bank 240 million e-gate system cost claim. The Ghana Immigration Service has dismissed claims on the social media suggesting that the e-gate system at the Kotoka International Airport cost taxpayers 240 million. I think as of now, it's an allegation, and they've come out with, they don't accept the claim. That I've not looked at the entire issues very well, but as it stands now, I'm sure it's something that Ghana Immigration Service have come out to dismiss that claim. It's important to interrogate, to find out whether these allegations are quite substantive and that needs further investigation. So it's quite a huge sum of money.
That's exactly what we're doing.
Million
Governs Kwame
e-gate system.
of the NDC side has put out some documents which he claims counter what the Immigration Service is saying, and that you can't put up an entire terminal for X amount and then see the e-gate system alone is going to cost almost that same amount. For me, especially because the entity involved, and I am intentionally not mentioning their name, has also had lots of contracts in the past, and there has been concern about conflict of interest and all of that. I think it should be halted, and we should get into the nitty-gritty of it, so that if there are thoughts that someone in this current administration is setting up, or a group of people, so that they will benefit in future, you can clear the air. I think transparency is important to them.
But it includes certain items here.
Yeah, they are talking about servicing and a period of over 10 years and all that. Or is that not what you're talking about?
Yeah. Mm. So we should interrogate this further.
Definitely, we should. Yeah. We should just ensure we are getting value for money. Let me go to the Daily Graphic. Is there something else you want to do? Or
no, for now.
All right. Daily Graphic newspaper, dedicate fund to pre-tertiary education. Nat cries out to the next government. There's also easy to recollate parliamentary results of 9 constituencies. The National Democratic Congress has dug its heels in on this matter. Africa needs people-centered leaders, former World Bank Vice President. And sometimes you wonder, our politicians, a lot of them, not all of them, get elected, and sometimes they quickly forget who puts them there. East Legon road crash, Bishop Salifu Amwako's son gets 6-month sentence. On the back page, cholera causes havoc in Western region, 16 casualties recorded. Yesterday we had Jennifer Boahin joining us in the studio to enlighten us. And I believe even we can aid the Ghana Health Service with that animation and maybe play it on our network from time to time, because a lot of people are falling to cholera. Do remember though, just quickly, if you wash your hands well, wash your hands often, wash them under running water with soap. If you're eating, eat food that is hot. Mind you, if you've got cholera, you can actually transmit the bacteria. So don't now engage in trying to cook and all that. You could easily pass it on, and then other people get infected. And if you start seeing the signs, the symptoms, don't wait and say, oh, I'm going to buy Imodium or Collodium to try and stem the tide. You could die. I've heard the story of someone who was, waiting, playing the waiting game. Before they realized, he was found in his room. He had puked all over himself. He was gone, dead. So don't take it for granted. Don't think you are strong, because it's letting you lose fluids orally, from your rear and all that. You are losing fluids rapidly. You are rapidly losing weight. You could die. So don't take it for granted. Quickly on these stories. Now, the Ghana National Association of Teachers is pushing for the state to urgently set up a system of dedicated funding for senior high, junior high, and basic schools, also known as pre-tertiary education. The largest pre-tertiary grouping of teachers said a dedicated source of funding would not only address the challenges bedeviling the free senior high school policy, but would also cure the dwindling quality at the junior high and basic school levels. And they say this call is in the national interest for the establishment of the fund, which should be a matter of priority for the new government, because the consequences of inadequate funding for pre-tertiary education could be dire if there is no such dedicated funding to solve the problems and provide quality education to Ghanaian children. I'll sew it up there. Then I'll look at the EC's issue on page 13. The EC has decided to go ahead with the re-collation of the parliamentary results of the 9 outstanding constituencies which were challenged by the MPP and the NDC after the December 7 general election. It therefore called on President Akufo-Addo and President-elect John Dramani Mahama and the National Election Security Task Force to ensure the necessary security and protection to enable it carry out its functions. Of course, there has been some disagreement as far as the NDC side is concerned, but we'll keep following that story to see what happens there. Also on page 13, Africa needs people-centered leaders. Africa needs a new set of public leaders who are knowledgeable and capable of addressing the totality of issues facing its people. A former vice president of the World Bank for the Africa region, Dr. Obiageli Ezekwesili, has said. I totally agree. Totally. And honestly, sometimes I look at some of our leaders, and that's why I hesitate a lot to call some of them honorable, not out of disrespect, because it is not you the title references your office, right? But your actions will also warrant. So, I mean, right from the DC, they want to be called honorable. But what is honorable about you if you're doing galamsey?
Exactly.
What is honorable about you if you're stealing state resources?
Exactly.
What is honorable about you if you're not doing the right thing at work? You're not putting the people first. It's self-aggrandizement, self-service. What is honorable about you? Yeah. So I totally agree here. And a lot of them, a number of them, it's either they know and they don't apply, or they don't know, so they are not knowledgeable. Because the person talks about being knowledgeable here. I don't know, but me sometimes when I look at some of them, I listen to their rhetoric. You sometimes, this is an Ivy League trained person. Why is the person sounding like this? It's also like the Nsawame Dwadri MP saying, halt the transitional project. But anyway, on the international front, Turkey refutes U.S. claims of ceasefire with Syrian Kurdish, and women breaking the glass ceiling. This is a good one. Major General Anita Asma, that recent appointment to the UN command. Oh, wow. Great. Yes. She's done us really proud.
She's a lawyer as well.
Oh, she is?
She's my mate, yeah.
Right.
They're very competent, yeah.
So that is that. There's also this interesting article on page 17, Election 2024, Green Wave in Accra, what accounted for it. Those who speak to the issue, Sylvester Mensah, you know him, formerly of the NHIA, Richter, Ni Amafi, Vice Chairman, National Fisheries Association, Divine Agohom, Greater Accra Regional Chairman of the MPP, Kwesi Poku Bosompim, MPP Constituency Chairman for Tema West. They all share ideas. You can get the story from the Daily Graphic newspaper. Any thoughts, gentlemen? Prof?
Yeah, the first one from the graphic, the front page on the government should dedicate, I think, dedicate fund to tertiary education. In fact, per my field, anytime you want to have a good advocacy for educator-related matter, I will support. And that's what NAT is crying out for. I think there will be a lot of demands on this government. That's another call. So the government should expect more coming from, for the sake of the national interest. In Ghana, I'm sure we only have about 4-5 sources of funding as far as education, the sector is concerned. Yeah. One from the GOG, which is about 67.7%, and one from, I think, Get Fund, which is about 10 point something. And then from IGF, which is about 11.2. And from the last one with the donor, it's about 4%. And from the ABF.
The tax component also is the Get Fund. There's also the
Get Fund portion. That is about 10 point something. And then from the ABFA, from the oil, it's about, I think, 6.7. If a body is calling for a dedicated fund, they are calling for strategic investment into this area. In fact, if you don't develop the pre-tertiary education, the structure will not work. The tertiary one will not work. So if you want to build a strong and solid workforce, it starts from the pre-tertiary education. So as where the funds will get the funds from is another issue. But for me, they are calling for a dedicated fund that will help promote the pre-tertiary, because it's key in our national development. We don't wait. You
agree with them?
Yeah, I agree with them. We don't wait for us to start from the top.
Right. Let me just add this to the story about the EC to recollate parliamentary results of 9 constituencies. The South Dai MP, Roxanne Nelson Dafia-Mekpo, on page 18, EC has no power to withhold 9 parliamentary results. That's according to the minority. Just adding that to, as you come in with your reactions.
So you do have to go, so make it brief.
Okay, so I will just comment quickly on Africa Needs People-Centered Leaders by Dr. Obiageli of the World Bank. I think people have termed there's a term going around called, I think it's politipreneurs, where people enter politics just to make money. And we are getting too many of such politicians. And the electorate need to, what I call, they have to shine their eye whenever they are voting, to know those who are coming to take care of the country and their needs, and those who are coming just to enrich themselves. That's what I have to say.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. And because I know someone who's affected by this NAM1 issue, I just want to put out that he's begged the courts for time to get a new lawyer. The embattled CEO of defunct Men's Gold Ghana Limited, Nana Appiah Mensah, has pleaded with the High Court in Accra to give him what he described as reasonable time to engage the services of a new lawyer in his trial before the courts. And I think he disagreed with his lawyer in terms of the tangent on which he wants to plead his case. And so if you fall in that category, NAM1 says he needs more time to get a new lawyer.
Well.
Then he should go.
Thank you, gentlemen, for joining the conversation. Kwame Nkrumah Botie, of course, with the CPP, Professor Isaac Boadi of the UPSC. We're grateful for your time with us this morning. Well, we'll be serving you sports up next. I'm talking about Prime Take with Muftau Nabila Abdullahi, following which I will bring you my blunt thoughts. Today I've titled it, A Purported Strong Economy, Oral, and an LGBTQ bill green light. What lies in there? You want to stay for those conversations. Up next, Prime Take with Muftau Nabila Abdullahi.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
I've chased this interview for like a year now.
It's true, more than a year. Because you don't choose the right time.
So this is my problem.
Yes, the problem is you. You know, today you got me rightly because today is Monday. I have to go and play football. So you can see in my jersey already. Going to this.
So what does this remind you of, this outfit, this dressing?
It's normal. I mean, we've been like that since the days of me growing up in Takoradi. Like every Monday in the afternoon, we'll have to go to Police Park, we call, to go and look at all these top players there. Ebo Smith, Emmanuel Kwachi, Kofi Abre, and the rest, train. And then, strangely, they all loved me. And so I was always in there with them. They encouraged me a lot because they had dealt with my father before.
Oh, okay.
My father coached secondary Azakes. I mean, he played the team before he was the captain and he became the coach. So I think when I was born, he was the coach. So I grew up interacting with all these.
Your football has been in your DNA?
Oh, yes. 4 of us, 4 boys, all of us played football.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So,
that's interesting.
and it came naturally. It wasn't as though our father played football, so he was pushing us to play football. Unlike recently, you see some parents pushing their wards to go and play football. No, it just came. Me, for instance, I had completed GSTS waiting for my results, GC then, and one day I visited the training of soccer missionaries, sitting under a mango tree at the training grounds, and Coach Amwa walked to me and he said, Infante, what's in your bobo pa? I said, oh, yes, coach, okay. Start training with us tomorrow. The rest is history.
The rest is history. That's a good one. But were you that talented? Because for Coach Amwa to just walk in and...
Yeah, because I think somebody has spoken to him about me. You know, playing, growing up in Takoradi, playing coach as usual. Yeah. I started as a midfielder. You can say an offensive midfielder.
Yeah.
And so, all through my coach playing days, I played through, you say number 8. And so, when I transitioned into a striker, I could score goals that people did not understand because I learned from playing as the number 8. I could always pop in the area without you noticing me. Yeah. So it was so now I'm old, and if I'm playing at the back, because now when we go, I play at the back, and
because you don't want to run.
Not like that. I think I run more than most of my colleagues now.
Oh really?
Oh yeah, because we've put on weight and all that. So I run most, so I have to be at the back to cover them. But it's because of the knowledge I had playing in the midfield, the eye for making those covering at the back. So I prefer playing there. It also gives me the opportunity to run more and to train more. Yeah. Because most of the colleagues will have the ball, play with it, pass the ball and be walking. But I would prefer to be more engaging.
So naturally, has football always been that thing in you?
Yes. I think it was a natural thing that was given me by God. But you just have to work on it. And so I have the eye, let's say, to scout, to be able to identify what a particular team is trying to do, and then could plan towards it. So if I observe a game, I'm able to immediately pick what the other team is trying to do, and then we'll have to get a strategy to outwit them. I'm able to easily do that.
You spoke about your you and your siblings, like 4 of you, right?
Yeah.
You grew up from a very good home, a very good background?
Yes. My father was very strict. Never will strike you or anything of that sort. But even with a look, you'll be able to notice that.
Those looks.
Yeah, something is
the eyeball alone is enough to give you a message.
My father was a very calm person, but very
like
firm.
Yourself?
Very firm, because I remember Uncle Ben Kofi, when I served on the technical committee of the FA with him.
Yeah.
One day he called me and said, Augustine, in our local Infanti, Maminka said, he was a stammer.
Yeah.
Usubanti da papa, like almost like my father, and you have to be very careful, because over here, those of us like that, people don't like us. They think that we are too open. We speak our mind.
No holds barred.
Yes. So, you're careful. And I just sat down and said, yes. Because, you see, where we come from, and what I've learned, when you begin to speak like the other side always feel that you are against them. But it is wrong.
But what influenced that advice from the late Ben Kofi?
Yes, he did a lot. But for me, if I see something is not right, it is not right. So how do we do something to remedy the situation? This is what I'm looking for.
Did you say something to influence that advice from him?
Yeah, I mean,
or
what
you
he
did
told
something on the
you know what he told me was, the advice he gave me was that my father wants Kotoko and Azakes. And Kotoko needed a draw to win the league. And Kotoko did everything possible to be able to get them in. But then the Azakes officials told the Kotoko officials that, look, as for him, he will not agree. So it's better you people try and speak to him. And my father was the captain. So
how do you go and speak to a principal?
They approached him and he said, no, for him, he will play to win. If they win, fine. If Azakes also wins, so be it. And you guess what? He was the one who scored the only goal of that match. And Azakes beat Kotoko, and Kotoko was not champion that year. And so he told me that you have to maintain your dignity all the time.
But when you were on the committee, were you, like, quote unquote, a trouble causer to merit Ben Kofi advising you to maybe slow down on some of the things?
Yeah, because he had identified that I was punching on the right things. He identified that Augustine will be able to know that this, and that is not right. Let me give you an example. Before, whenever coaches were appointed to handle the national teams, under Mr. Nyantichi's tenure, the executive council or whoever were in charge will pick 3 people, and then 3 people from the technical committee will meet, and then do the interview and assess them, and then. And I remember an appointment was made for National Under 17. And it was Kwesi Fabian and Opele. Kwesi Fabian was the head coach, assisted by Opele. I was in the US then, on a vacation. So immediately the appointment was made after the interview had been done. I knew that Sika Kono, who had applied to be the trainer or the coach for National Under 17, was the best amongst all the people that were interviewed. And he applied for Under 17 specifically because he thought he was now.
Yeah.
But the job was given to Kwesi Fabian, assisted by Opele. So I called Uncle Ben. I said, Uncle, what is starless to Ghana football? And he said, it is the foundation. Of the game here in Ghana. I said, okay. So I said, so if you don't get it right from the beginning, the end result will not be the right. He says, yes. I said, okay, Uncle, why would we appoint Kwesi Fabian as Under 17 coach? Brilliant. And say Opele should assist him. I'm not saying Opele is not good. But look, the Under 17 is the foundation. Players are supposed to be 15 years 14, 15, and 16. They are still amateurs. These players don't know what really entails or pertains in the game. So if they get certain things wrong technically, we, the coaches, have to demonstrate to them on the field of play. Isn't it? He says yes. But Uncle, you know Pakwesi Fabian did not play football. I mean, he's been part of so, but he didn't play football physically. Opele, no. So, if these people were coaching the Black Stars or Satellite, fine. But not Starlets. Because the things that they are going to get them wrong, that they will not be able technically to teach them. Then he says, August, when are you coming down? And I said, oh, in about 4 weeks' time. Okay, when you come, let me know, I'll call a meeting. And I want you to ask the same question. Indeed, I came down, I called the uncle, I'm back. Okay, next week, Tuesday, we'll have a meeting. So we went. And he told me, when you come into a meeting, ask that question. When it comes to any other business. So we did our thing, and then when he go, I asked the same question. And then Coach Adi, may he so rest in peace, said, Augustine, you are right, you are right. But you see, we put Opele there for media purposes. Yes. What for media purposes?
You hire a coach,
yes,
for the foundation of your football,
yes,
just for the media purposes?
Yes, they put him there for the media purposes. And I said, why, coach?
What sort of justification was given for that?
So, you can see that the real pressure did not come from them. But technically, it wasn't the right. And if you can remember, for me, it was one of the worst under 17 teams that we had. Because we went to a tournament, I think, in Algeria, if I'm not wrong, Algeria or Morocco. And we lost the first game to Nigeria by 6-1 or something, if I'm not wrong.
Which year was this?
2011.
2011?
Yeah, 2011, somewhere there about. You can go back and check.
Yeah,
we came out of the...
Yeah, that was one of the horrible U17 teams that had to get Salastete to come back to take over the
under 20.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, if we do these things to ourselves, and somebody who has played the game before and knows these things, and you talk about, I'm not a talkative.
But couldn't people have said that because you have a good relationship with CK, that's why you, in your opinion, you think CK should?
No, it wasn't that I wanted CK to be the coach. I said, amongst the people that came for the interviews, everybody had been given an area to apply for. He applied for under 17. So if interviews are conducted and he comes on top of that area that he had applied for,
and he's not handed it,
and he's not giving it to him,
yeah,
and then we give to some other people because of supposed whatever
media,
and then it goes wrong, who are you supposed to blame?
But as a committee, couldn't the committee have insisted that based on the interviews we conducted, these were the people,
the executive
first,
always
second,
has
third,
the advantage over it. They don't want to say it. The executive always wants what they want to be.
Then what's the essence of the technical committee also interviewing people and cannot make suggestion that this person should be the person we believe can lead the technical team?
They'll say you are not a team player. Mufta, you have been in this business for that long.
But we're having a conversation.
I'm not supposed to be the one to tell you it happens.
I need to understand, because the point is that if you hire me to do a job for you, and I make recommendations based on my technical experience, but you decide to overlook what I've suggested and go to hire someone, quote unquote, who do not have the technical abilities to execute what the technical team thinks should be done, then we are doing ourselves a great disservice.
That's how come we are where we are. Because people are not willing to come out. In the name of team. You are not part of the team, you are not part of the team. But my brother, as you sit here, if you identify that I'm doing something which is not right, and you are not able to tell me, and you continuously look the other way for me to perpetuate that, and I fail, haven't we failed together?
At this one, they have supervised your failure.
So, you see, we have to begin to really understand the norms of this game and try to correct them. Seriously. Other than that, tomorrow you get me in another interview, you pose the same question, will probably give you worse answers than what I'm giving you now. But that is a reality. It is.
Did you eventually find out who hired Pakwesi and Opele?
I told you earlier on that 3 members of the executive committee then, now it's called executive council.
Yes.
And then 3 members of the technical committee would always meet to interview. At the end of the day, the decision is collective. So if the technical committee then will propose and then the executive does not take it, and then they think otherwise and make those appointments, the technical committee can't come out to come and say subsequently that this is what we did, and then
why
then you can, but you come, you say that and you know that you are off next time.
Yes. So to protect your integrity,
yes.
Then it
you
is
remember
better to...
You remember 2015?
Yes.
4 years after serving 4 years on the technical committee of the FA, I was moved to the under-20 national team.
Okay.
As a management committee member. So I was part of that Celestata team that went to New Zealand.
And you were beaten by Mali.
Yes. And guess what? You see, these are the things that I don't understand. As a committee member, 2 or 3 persons from the committee are supposed to be part of the team at any time that they travel. But you have me, Augustin, who has played the game before, has played under 20 all the way to the final. We have won the AYC. I was the top scorer. We went to the World Cup. I was one of the top scorers. I think we were 2 or 3. But Zambrano from Colombia won because he played fewer matches. Who has transitioned to becoming a coach? And also,
and you have to add a CAF license A, isn't it?
Yes, and then also a member of a committee. And then we were in training camp in Turkey when we were going for the AYC in Senegal. I was with the team in Turkey because they know Turkey was my base and they needed me to communicate with the language and all that. But when we were going for the tournament in Senegal, I was dropped. Because supposedly I had traveled the team to Turkey, so I could not. Some other committee members should go. But you have to bear in mind that I have played the game before. I am a coach. And so if I'm a member of the committee, I can even assist the coach in terms of when things go bad, technically. The same thing happened. We went to Australia for pre-tournament camp before the World Cup, but I wasn't part of the team to New Zealand. So I had to return to Ghana while the team was in New Zealand. So
let's rewind.
For me, I think that it was wrong. It was wrong.
So let's rewind the conversation a bit. What is that one thing you've never told anyone about yourself?
I don't know. I think everything about me is out there.
No?
Yeah.
There are definitely some aspects of you that we don't know.
Oh, what? My kids?
How many?
I have 3 boys, 3 girls.
6?
Yes.
Wow, what a striker.
I'm a grandfather now.
Oh, really?
Yes, my firstborn has a nice baby boy in the US. They are all outside of Ghana. You know, I lost their mom when the first one was barely 11 years. 11th December will be 15 years she passed. Now my son will be 27 early next year. And then the second one is 20. They are all down with university. The third one is in Minnesota University. The fourth one recently completed Accra Girls. She left last Friday to US. The fifth one is in the US high school. And then the last one is with my current wife. Yes, she's also over there. So that's all that. But so I've said it.
You are born in more?
Eh?
You were born more?
I don't think so. But if it comes, it comes. You know, I had in mind, when we got married, I had in mind of having 2 kids. 1 girl and a boy. Because I loved girls growing up with their hair made and all that. I loved. So it was always my prayer to have a firstborn girl and then a boy. And then we had a boy. And then, like, almost 3 years, another boy. Between this one and that one, almost 5 years, another boy.
Back to back to back.
Boy. My wife was so down. And then almost immediately, between the 3rd and the 4th, she got pregnant. So my 3rd born and the 4th born, it's exactly 1 year, 9 months difference.
Okay.
Yes. He's born January, the girl is born in September. 5th January, 8th September. So it was exactly, so she got back, pregnant again. And every test that we had said it was a boy. And then she gave birth, it was a girl.
Oh, nature.
Everything. Even the videos on screen in the US, you can see the testicle, everything there. But when she gave birth, it was a girl.
Nature?
Yeah.
Nature finally gave you your girl?
Yeah. And so when
you can strike.
Yeah, when I had the girl, I was overjoyed. But the fifth one also came. And from nowhere, I don't know. It was God's doing. Because there's a lot of stories behind. Maybe that is my secret I don't want to share. I will share it on another platform. When it comes to religious platforms, this is not a religious platform.
No, let's have that religious conversation. No, in fact, I'm interested. I'm interested in the wonderful hand of God in this.
Oh yes, because you see, I had decided I didn't want to play football again, 2008, because I couldn't run from here to there, and then my knees would be swollen. It was like, you see, like it would be shaking as though there was water in there. And it happens playing football once every now and then. You have to go, they will drain the water out of the fluid. And then 2008, I said, I can't deal with the pain again. And I didn't want to have any operation, so I stopped. That's how I stopped football. So for 3 years, I couldn't play Monday Stars. I couldn't run from here to there. And because I couldn't run. I'll go to training at the Balishi Park, my friends Osekufo and the rest will be playing, I'll be sitting there watching them. So one day I went to church on a Sunday, and as we're doing the worship songs, the woman who was singing, who was not a pastor, just said, I've seen that the Holy Spirit has entered here and is holding somebody, and they are healing that person. They are holding the person's knees and they are healing the person. So as I stood there, I just said to myself, oh God, I wish it was me. All my friends play Monday Stars, and I don't play soccer for 3 years. I wish it was me. So I just prayed that prayer. And then after the worship, I decided to walk down there to go and get a bottle of water. So as I walked towards the gate there, somebody tapped me from behind. And when I turned, it was the woman who was on stage singing. I said, Mr. Info, hey, can I speak to her? I said, why? He says, what I said was you. As I was singing, the Holy Ghost opened my eye, and I saw two angels. One was leaning left and the other right. They were shaking your knees like this. That's why I asked, that what are they doing? They said they are healing you. I said, yeah, that's why I stopped playing football. So wow, then the God is doing something. Do you believe in this anointing oil thing? I said, so buy one there for me. There's a woman who sells it. So I bought a small body olive oil. She prayed over it and gave it to me to just use it on my leg. So I came when I applied it 1 or 2 times. I just put the oil somewhere. Exactly a month after. Exactly a month after, because it was a Sunday. The month, that day was a Monday. So I just put on my shirt like this, and I went to the park and I was playing football. Everybody was asking, have you been training secretly? I said, no, I'm healed.
Wow.
Yeah. And then this last born girl that I'm talking about. So when I came home 2000, that I wanted to stop football. I think a month or 2 after, my wife said she was pregnant. I said, you say you have your girl. You have the girl. You're going to do family planning. You know I'm a striker. I can shoot and score from angles.
Every angle.
And then she says, I didn't know. Then I didn't know women were secretive. Like, she brought out a diary. Everything that had happened between ourselves since I met her is in that diary. So she said, oh, you know, you came to from Turkey on this day. I had my menses on that day, so I was safe. So when we had sex, I couldn't have been pregnant, but I'm pregnant. I said, oh, no problem. She said, no. People will say that we are giving birth as though we don't think. Because you have 3 boys and a girl, you want to... I said, but you are a married woman. He says, no. So she went to see the doctor and he was terminated. And then I went to US because my leg was not rest. I went for a checkup. And then I came back after a month, some weeks down the line, I came. And then some 2 months down the line, she said she was pregnant again. I said, madam, if you have Ola Body Williams here, you are doing all things like that.
You have a striker at home.
And then she says, no, the same thing happened and blah, 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 blah. I said, oh, yeah, keep it, no problem. I mean, God gives and then... She carried the pregnancy for like 3 months. And then one day I was going for an all-night service. So when I got there, I picked my phone. I wanted to put it in the letter box there. And I saw she sent me a message that I have an appointment with the doctor tomorrow to go and terminate the pregnancy because I can't do it anymore. The sleepless night and all that. I said, no problem, go ahead and do it. But, madam, should something happen, count me out. So I went to the church. I put my phone, I went to church. After church, when I went to the church and I was praying, I saw this pastor that had visited us from Kumasi. He was walking towards me, but we're praying. So he just came and then stood beside me and then whispered to me that God is telling me that I should tell you that your wife is pregnant, that she wants to touch it. This is the second time. And the moment he said this is the second time, I began to shake a bit. So I looked at him like that. He says, did you hear what I said? Me say, Nyame catch him say, "We yere afa ye fun person or in saka." Kona ko catch him say, "Onu Nyame nim problem bi a wo ho." She shouldn't touch that pregnancy. This is the second time. In fact, I couldn't pray again. So I just came out. I waited. The church was over like 4 a.m. thereabout. Then after, I showed the message to the pastor. He said, "Oh, what's the problem?" I said, "I don't know." She said she has too many kids. So, no, I'll be here. So bring her to church. Let me counsel her. So I came home. And I said, well, let me sleep. When she wakes up then. So I went to sleep in the other bedroom. Because she was there. As I was sleeping down there, then my phone message, ping, 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 ping. 5 o'clock, who will be sending me text me, 5. Then I heard the voice that read the message. It was clear, audible voice, read the message. I just got up, I pressed the phone, and it was my wife. I am at the hospital waiting for the doctor. She had moved the car from the house and I was so tired, so I didn't even hear. So I called her and said, "Madam, this is what I went to church. I was told. But once again, like I told you in the text message, I'm not going to stop you. Go ahead. If something should happen, count me out. You're a big girl, madam." I just hung it up. Then I didn't see her the whole day. I think she went to her mom's place and she never came back until very late. I didn't ask her whether she did it or she didn't do it. So I was there. I could see the pregnancy was coming. Then she gave birth to the last one. But strangely, 6 months after giving birth, she passed. So these are my secrets.
It is a hand of God for me.
It's now 15 years.
God having to speak to you.
Yeah.
I don't want to remind you of old, but how were you able to take care of a 6-month-old baby?
Like you said, God, sometimes you don't understand him, but it is what it is. Whether he's here with us or he's somewhere, we don't know. But I believe that he's amongst us. The small girl never took breast milk the first day she was born. Never. So from the word go, she was on milk, like the artificial one. In the US, when you give birth, they supply you this milk. Yeah. You can't use it tomorrow. It's just today. When the baby doesn't ready, you discard it. So
you get another one.
Yeah, it is supplied you. So every now and then you go for it and until the baby. And she never took the breast milk. So when she passed, though difficult, it wasn't difficult because she was not on the natural one, but this artificial one and other foods. So I could handle. And she was somebody who, the small girl, hardly would want to go somewhere. Somebody, like, it's me and the mother. So initially it was tough because she wouldn't want to go to anybody in the house. People came there and she would just be crying the whole day. But when I'm around, she's okay. And it was like myself, the siblings. So it was difficult, but not difficult. People offered to take her along, especially my wife's big brother wanted to take her to the UK, as well as my other girl. But I said no, I wanted to be with them, to grow together with them.
So you...
Yeah, from the very onset, 6 months, like we were together. And so...
You took care of them alone?
Yes. 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 So when I was traveling, we all go. When I'm coming, we all come. Like they are on vacation. So my small girl, like she started school very early. Because when the others were going to school, she was always crying. So I spoke to the school mistress and said, no, bring her. So she stayed in one class for like 4 years. Or 4 or 5 years before because she was like a baby. So when they're on vacation, we travel out, I go to US, I bring them back. Some of the travels I have to cancel because I don't have time, my kids are there. So I have to be here. So for the first 5 years, it wasn't easy. But I had also this woman that we're in church with, who normally will come cook for them sometimes when I wasn't around. Maybe I'm traveling to Takrady or something, and I had this guy who really helped. We call him Kaporo. He was like a brother. He was in the house taking care of them as I also do other stuff. So, I mean, such is life. You see, you hear about death and you don't really envisage that it's going to come to you one day. But one day you wake up and it hits you like an earthquake. And if you are not prepared, it's not going to be easy. But me, I always, God, there's a lot of things God has done, but when my wife died, I was asking a lot of questions. This is a woman who has suggested we give you a land to do your work. You don't have a big land on the main Kaneshi Odoko Road.
Oh, okay.
Very big land. And my wife suggested we give to the church. So that's why we're worshiping. We are giving it to the church. And somebody was fighting with me concerning the land in court. And I was going to court every now and then just to fight for God's work to go on the land. And then
God has decided to take from you.
Yeah, I take with a small girl of 6 months. I mean, God, what is going on? Then one day I was driving, before her burial, I was driving alone on this stretch coming home. Then, I don't know, whether my hand pressed or whatever, and then the radio changed to Sunny FM. And there was ministration by Pastor Takia Boy or Bishop Takia Boy. And strangely, he was preaching about death. And I just was driving, I was listening. It was like God was speaking to me directly. That every time people buy newspapers and they see obituary and they read and they don't even think that one day, but the next moment you close your eyes and you open, that thing is in your family,
in your
it's
circle.
around you. And when it happens, what do? We all want to go to heaven, so we are in church praying and fasting and all that. Nobody also wants to die. So as the man kept preaching, I said, wow. So that was when I began to really understand what had happened. So I took it on board. Like Sinki Akono would tell, oh, guessing, we need you. Wife Williams, what am I going to do? You want me to go and put my head on the highway for the articulator to come and run over me? No.
What would become of the children?
There are kids to take care of. So in as much as I'll stay in my room and grieve, when I come out there, I have to put up that whatever. So, I mean, for me, if I hear religious argument, I don't want to be involved. Because I know the man that I believe in. So all these religious argument, blah, 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 I don't read because I know what he's done. And I really don't want to.
God has really laid his hand on you.
Yeah, I know.
Because to have been able to go through this
it's not easy.
Quite a difficult period for anyone to experience. And having kids, handling them alone.
I'm a grandfather now.
Wow. Wow. If you just joined us, we are speaking to Augustine Ahimfo, a former Black Stars International. And in fact, he shared quite incredible stuff with us here on Prime Take. So this full interview will air on Saturday at 7:30 p.m.
Welcome aboard. Welcome back on the AM show. It's time now for me to share with you my blunt thoughts. And this morning I've titled it, A Purported Strong Economy, Oral and an LGBTQ Bill Green Light. What lies in there? A purported strong economy, Oral and an LGBTQ Bill Green Light. What lies in there? And of course, when I talk about Oral, I'm talking about Operation Recover All Loot. But let's start from here. On this bit on our economy, the Finance Minister, Dr. Amin Adam, has been saying we're handing over a strong economy, robust economy. In fact, the President has always also said same, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. But what are some of the facts? How do we tell? Let's go to the next slide. So if you look at Ghana's economy, the reality check, one of the measures you can use is GDP, gross domestic product. You look at our GDP in 2016, 219.6 billion, and in 2024, the current status, at least leading into next year, 1.05 trillion Ghana cedis. Of course, you have to factor in the dollar rate and all that. Let's go to the next slide. And from the public debt stock, if we can go to the next slide, then you would see that we have here the public debt, which is 120 billion Ghana cedis when the NDC was leaving office, and the 761 billion Ghana cedis and counting as this administration begins to leave power. You can also weigh in on inflation back then versus now. Now we've hit a peak of about 54+%. And you remember just about a year and a half, 2 years ago, we hit that stride. But as of when the NDC was leaving office, we're looking at about 15.4%. And we said this was not good. And we had to deal with the situation. Agreed. It was a bit high. It was rather high. Then we come to the current administration. Even now that it has plummeted from 54%, you're looking at a staggering 23%. Now, in other jurisdictions, they have ways of managing such things, especially including the safety nets when it comes to people who have no work, no means of sustenance. We don't. So this is crucial, and it bites you. Next slide. Then you look at the exchange rate. And of course, you remember famously the current president talking about under Kufuor, 2 cedis, $1, and now about 4 cedis to the dollar, thereabouts. Well, the reality is that we're looking at, in 2016, 4 cedis and 9 pesos to the dollar. And today, even as it has plummeted by about 2 cedis thereabouts, you're looking at 14 cedis and 70 pesos. 4 cedis, 14 cedis. So when the talk about the economy you're handing over is better, we must adopt some of these metrics. You may do the math and see that, well, if you look at the disparities between GDP and debt from back then, maybe more has been accrued now. But what is government debt like? What is government, responsibility like when it comes to the public sector wages and all of that? All of these must be factored into the conversation. But before I get to oral, right, I need to ask in Parliament, what are these squabbles in Parliament? The whole talk about if you don't do this, we'll also not do that. If the current majority feels disgruntled by actions of the current minority and they say they were irresponsible, do 2 wrongs make a right? Do these puerile actions, and we won't read the mini budget, and for 3 months you'll see how you run the country. Does it solve the problem? Do we realize what we are doing, especially to public sector workers who will be sorely affected, a lot of whom voted for the MPP? Don't forget that. So have we forgotten them already? I listened to Alexander Afenyomarkin, the majority leader, say, and we need to do the right things to curry favor with the Ghanaian people. Did the MPP not say it wanted to claw back votes from Ghanaians, among whom you have these same public sector workers? How about investors? You say you want tax waivers for some investors, but you will destroy the same space for that same group next year. How does that make any sense? So all of that must be brought into the fray. And let's see what the finance minister does, whether he's going to read that mini budget ahead of next year. But whatever it is, there will be consequences. Now, if you continue from the front of oral, Operation Recover or Loot, for those who are uninitiated, you have that committee, the Member of Parliament, Okujato Domelevo, former Auditor General Kofi Boakye, retired Martin Pebu, and Raymond Archer, an investigative journalist. Next slide. You look at these people, and then you look at the NDC's top 5 campaign messages. Right there, you see corruption. So 1, economy; 2, unemployment; 3, education; 4, on the subject of corruption; 5, on health. But let's narrow down on corruption. Next slide. The number of promises made by the NDC on governance and corruption were 33. Interesting number. Next slide. And then on oral, it says they will launch an Operation Recover or Loot to investigate, prosecute, investigate, prosecute, recover proceeds of corruption. Now, that's not going to be an easy task. It's going to be a tall order, because in some instances, you may have to only resort to the option of jailing the person. That is, if the person is convicted of a crime. Recovery is not always the easiest thing, but it is the best option, whether in conjunction with jail terms or a loan, because we need the money to help the state, honestly. Next slide. Then you look at the NDC's manifesto on corruption, and again, it talks about launching inquiries into the numerous scandals forensically, and that's important, forensically. That, talks about the depth people will go into to uncover rot in the system. Forensically audit the National Cathedral project, set up special corruption courts, assist the Auditor General in recovering embezzled funds. And I feel here our legal system should do more to ensure that it is not post the fact. After the wrong has been committed, then we want to surcharge and all of that, so that even while it is happening, the Auditor General can call attention to some of these matters and they can be halted. So that if we would have lost 10 billion, maybe we've lost 2 billion up to this point, and we can deal with the problem before we lose the extra 8 billion. And then 5, set up an independent value for money office. All of these look very good on paper. It's the implementation, that's where the devil is. And that's why some of us are hoping indeed that more will be done incisively. Because listen, we are all in this state. We can't have a few, like Thomas Sankara says, we can't have a few enjoying champagne while the masses can't even drink good water. It's either a few enjoying champagne or water for everybody. Which one do we prefer? Then the mandate of the oral preparatory team: gather evidence from citizens and whistleblowers. This is important because we also need to protect whistleblowers and not leave them open. I've heard the likes of Hobson Adoye, former MP Enin, talk about the fact that they know people in this administration who have engaged in corruption, and they can lead them to some of these, documents and other things. Such people, if indeed what they say is true, ought to be protected as whistleblowers. Next slide. Again, provide evidence to the Attorney General, Special Prosecutor, and appropriate institutions to ensure a quick start in 2025. I'm not sure here whether it refers to the current AG, for example, the Attorney General, and all of that. As for the Special Prosecutor, he has security of tenure. He's going to stay in place. But it will interest me how that is run so that it can kickstart in 2025. And then the top cases for oral. I have a lot of interest here. National Cathedral expenditure. I've always said, and some people feel, when you talk against this, you don't sound Christian. I'm very Catholic, but this honestly made no real sense to me within the time frame. If it were to be a long-term project like the Notre Dame in France, do you know how long it took to put the Notre Dame up in France? And all of that, it would make sense. But especially when you say, no state money is going in there, and you end up doing what you did, how can I support that? That is if God even spoke. Then, point 2, $2 million spent on the Sky Train project is also going to be looked at. People are calling for these. Sputnik V vaccine procurement, the Pwalugu Dam construction. We earmarked about 1 billion for this project. What happened? And we paid a sum of money for no work done. What happened? The Ejapa royalties scandal and the sale of state lands. All of these on the chopping board. And some of us are waiting with bated breath, with popcorn, popcorn in hand, munching, waiting for the action to begin. Next slide. And we'll be wrapping up in just a bit. Then you look at the trend of Ghana's corruption perception, and really we've not done well. If you look at the highest the Mahama administration scored, 48, and that's why they always say that their worst, which is right here. 43 in 2016 is the best of the Akufo-Addo administration, all the way from 2021 to 2023. The point being, while some may have fared better, and the closer you are to 100, the better it is. The lower you are closer to 0, the worse it is. If we are still in the 40s region from 2012 to 2023, we have a lot of work to do. Next slide. You also look at the track record in fighting corruption. I will not bore you with too much detail, but if you look at the scores, NPP 42, average score 43.5 for the NDC, lowest being 40, score being 39, and the highest there, the comparatives, 43 and 48. You see that the net after 7 years is 0 for the MPP, 2 for the NDC. Still not much in between. So former President Mahama, now President-elect, you have a lot of work to do in this regard. You may have fared better, but there's still so much more to be done. Now, as I get ready to wrap, I also want to just look quickly at the anti-gay bill's constitutionality. The Supreme Court has dismissed the petition against the constitutionality of the bill. And let's go to the next slide. The key issues were that interlocutory injunction to bar the bill from transmission, the constitutionality of the bill itself, and the absence of required fiscal impact analysis for the bill. Now, you would see certain, if we go to the next slide, certain specifics. For example, Dr. Amanda Odoi wanted to restrain the Speaker and Clerk until substantive matters were determined. The claim that irreparable damage would occur if the injunction was not granted, and the assertion that the bill violated several constitutional articles. Then you would look at Richard Skye, who says the absence of fiscal impact analysis for the bill, seeking to restrain the Speaker and Clerk from presenting the bill, and seeking to restrain the President from assenting to the bill, citing constitutional violations. Well, the court has thrown these out. But the question is, and that will be my final slide, what then happens? What does President Akufo-Addo do? Well, he has options. The bill can proceed to the President for assent or dissent. As of this point, he can't piggyback on, oh, the matter is before court, though it wasn't before court when he met the diplomatic corps that day. The matter has now been decided. So now he would have to decide for himself. Do I sign? Do I not sign? And if he doesn't want to sign, what are the reasons? Ghana Bayede, Home Ayede. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. These are my blunt thoughts shared with you, raw, hot, and edited, undiluted. As always, I pray, may God bless Ghana and make her great and strong.
Welcome back on the AM show. Now, I would wager you that in the month of October, you didn't go a day without hearing something about breast cancer. And it's interesting how we seem to forget as soon as the month of October passes. But this morning, let's get a conversation on breast cancer and understand the intersection between lifestyle and genetics when we talk about breast cancer. In the studio with me this morning is Dr. Lily Paimka. She's senior lecturer at the Department of Biochemistry, Cell and Molecular Biology, and Deputy Director of Research and Entrepreneurship at West African Genetic Medicine Center. Doc, welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
And that's a very rich background and should I call it credentials?
Well, I guess.
And let me add that we're matching yellow in your dress is very lovely. Right. So we're talking about breast cancer. Just to set the tone for the conversation, we know, I like to think that everybody at least has heard about breast cancer, but what really is breast cancer? And then we'll pick it up from there.
Okay. So breast cancer, what happens is cells proliferate normally, right? You start off as a single cell. That is from a sperm cell fertilizing an egg. So you have a single cell that's called a zygote. And for you to arrive as a whole human being, you've had several divisions, which are called mitosis, resulting in a human being that's made up of over 30 trillion cells. Now, how does that occur? Because cells proliferate. They divide, and you end up as a mass, a human being, right? Now, when this happens, you have genes that regulate how the cells divide so that it's controlled. Because what happens is the DNA, you have the DNA in your cells, right, in your nucleus. When the cell is about to divide, the DNA is copied, and then before the cells split. So you end up with daughter cells that are genetically identical. For instance, you know about DNA fingerprinting, DNA test. If you leave anything on a crime scene, like blood, sweat, saliva, whatnot, it comes back to you because the DNA is identical, right, in your cells, right?
Okay.
Now, what happens is cell proliferation or cell division is a normal phenomenon, right, which is tightly controlled. What happens is in cancer is when you have overproliferation, uncontrolled cell proliferation, that leads to a mass, like the cells overproliferating, eventually metastasizing or spreading around the body and eventually killing you. Well, it can happen in almost every cell type you have in your body, like 200 cell types. When it occurs in the breast, that's why you have breast cancer. So there are several ways of identifying or detecting, and one of them is a lump. And typically, that's a mass of cell that has overproliferated that it can actually feel as a lump. And then it keeps growing. So it grows faster than normal cells. Once again, it's unchecked and it overproliferates and then spreads around the body. So that's breast cancer, that occurs in the breast tissue.
Right. You said that genes regulate how the cells divide. And so when that, division is too much or is uncontrolled in the breast, that's when breast cancer develops. Exactly. In simple terms. That's how breast cancer develops.
Cancer. It's a complex genetic trait.
So then what's the intersection between genes and lifestyle?
Okay. So what happens
in terms of causes, I mean.
Because of breast cancer. So I guess, should I list the reasons? Okay. The risk factors for breast cancer is, first of all, you have being a woman. Being a woman. And the reason behind that is
just being a woman.
Being a woman. Most breast cancer cases are found in women. 99% of breast cancer cases are in women, 1% are in men. And there are several reasons. One, because a woman, you have breast, first of all, you have more breast tissue, like the lobes and the tubules that produce milk are more mature or developed in women. I mean, you look at a man, they typically have flat chest because they don't have a lot of, breast tissue that can
they don't have enough mammary glands.
Exactly, that develop into the cancer. Two, breast cancer is primarily driven by hormones. And I'm talking about progesterone and estrogen. And those are hormones that are highly expressed in women that give rise to our secondary characteristics and everything. So women produce estrogen and progesterone during their cycle. It's involved in so many pathways. Men produce significantly less estrogen. So because it's driven by these hormones, you're more likely to see breast cancer in women. In addition to the fact that they have more breast tissue. So one, that's one of the risk factors. Two is aging. We have about 22 or 20,000 genes in our DNA, right? And they're all involved in different functions. Now, there are a number of genes that regulate how these cells divide, right? Now, what happens is cells have an intrinsic, mechanism to repair DNA breaks and mutations. So, like I mentioned, these cells, you start off at a single cell, which divides so many times to give rise to 30 trillion cells in your body. Imagine your DNA, which is made up of, so the basic unit for DNA is what you call nucleotides. There are 4 types, and they are arranged in different patterns that give instructions to the genes that make the proteins and so on and so forth. Now, in a single cell in humans, the DNA has 6.4 billion of these nucleotides, of the building blocks. Imagine a cell copying this every time before it divides. They are prone to having some mistakes. There are genes that would check for mistakes, genes that repair, and so on and so forth. But as you grow older, right, some of these mutations can accumulate, right? And then eventually what happens is you have a number of different mutations. So it's not just a single mutation. There are a number of mutations that come together. So in these genes, you have the tumor suppressors and the oncogenes, and a combination of these two finally cause the cell to transform and become a cancer cell, right? So as you age, some of these repair mechanisms are a bit compromised, or even as you age, you acquire and accumulate some of the mutations. And when you have the necessary set of mutations in that cell, then you can get breast cancer. That's why it's more of an aging disease in general. But, sorry.
Don't worry.
But what I've described now, the mutations you acquire are what you call somatic mutations. You acquire them in your cells as you grow, right? Now, 90% of breast cancer cases are caused by some of these somatic mutations you acquire, just as a living thing, because you're exposed to many things in the environment, carcinogens, even byproduct of normal cell function, all these things contribute to that, right? Now, 5 to 10% are what you call familial or hereditary breast cancer. In that situation, you've already inherited a mutation from a parent. So you hear about people, she has a BRCA gene or something like that. We all have the BRCA genes. The problem is the mutations in the BRCA genes.
And we can have BRCA1 and BRCA2.
BRCA2.
Yeah.
So that is 2 most popular genes that have been associated with breast cancer. Yeah. And we done what we call high penetrance. So once you have a mutation in those genes, the chances of getting breast cancer are higher.
Let's take it down a notch, so that the young people, I have no doubt that the elder ones, are following the conversation. So you are saying that the risk factors for breast cancer, being a woman, because you have mammary glands, you have cells that are dividing and forming all those, and we have estrogen and what's it called again? Progesterone. Great. And then aging. As you grow, let's say your body doesn't function as well as it used to be, and so ordinarily, cells that would have fought cancers and all those things are not as active as they used to be, and so that also becomes a risk factor.
Yes, so they accumulate. So aging is one. Then 3, smoking is one of them. But smoking is a risk factor for all kinds of cancers. Why? Because the smoke has what you call carcinogens. And carcinogens are compounds that can cause DNA breaks. Now, when you have DNA breaks, or they can also cause mutations in your DNA. And mutations are, changes in the nucleotide. That now changes the function of the protein. So smoking has over 17 known carcinogens. So if you smoke, your chances are increased. Your chances of getting. And the other risk factor, having obesity is one of them.
Okay.
So especially at the postmenopausal stage, women, their adipose tissue or fat tissues also produce estrogen. So that exposure, what happens is with the breast respond to estrogen and progesterone, and that promotes, proliferation and so on. And when there's more proliferation, the chances of having DNA breaks and the chances of having disrepair, wrong nucleotides being inserted and mutations are higher. Right? Now, another risk factor.
Okay, Doc, let's do the proper intersection first, and then we can continue. So the genes, obviously, they play a huge factor. And then you're talking about smoking, aging. In fact, let's add aging to genetics, because that's happening without your control in any way. Yeah. So smoking is one. Because I was asking about where we connect lifestyle and genes, or the scientific bit, ones that we have no control over, and then the ones that we do. So let's do the lifestyle bit.
Okay.
So smoking is one of them. And then what else?
Drinking is one of them.
Okay.
So drinking alcohol. So drinking is kind of vague. Alcohol is actually a kind of toxin. And it's something that once it gets into your body, is broken down by enzymes in the liver. Now, one of the intermediates of the alcohol is actually it can affect the way estrogen is metabolized, so it can increase it. It can also form what you call adducts with DNA. It can bind to the DNA, and with that, it can cause extra breaks. So alcohol can actually increase your chances of getting breast cancer. Because
don't smoke, don't drink. Simple as that. Don't drink alcohol, don't smoke, don't smoke anything.
And then a couple of other things that I would say can be modified, but at the end it is down to personal choices.
Yeah. I was going to ask if dietary, diet plays any role at all.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, with diet, for example, it boils down to, it translates to having a healthy weight, which also has to do with obesity and all of that. So that can also contribute. So a couple of things that, it's up to the individual. Having children can reduce your risk.
Reduce?
Yes. Breastfeeding can reduce. And it boils down back to the estrogen, So what happens is when your breast tissues, right, realize your menstrual cycle, it's cyclical. The exposure to these hormones. During your cycle, right before your cycle, the breasts get bigger.
Yes,
so they're responding to these hormones. There's proliferation, and then it drops. So this cyclical movement can actually contribute to some of these changes that can lead to cancer.
Because it's regulating the division of the cells.
Exactly. So are the estrogen and progesterone. So what happens is the cells that produce the breast milk, the lobules, the cells in the lobules that produce the breast milk, do not reach their full potential. They are still not fully differentiated. Now, they get fully differentiated when you get pregnant. You see, your breast, first of all, you're not exposed to that cyclical change. So the breast cells fully mature in preparation, towards breastfeeding. So when it gets for that 9 months, where you're not exposed to that cyclical change, the cells don't misbehave in quotes.
Right.
So then the chances of acquiring all those other breaks are limited. So that translates that makes sense to when you breastfeed for a longer period. When you're breastfeeding for a longer period, these breast cells are producing milk.
Does that in any way mean that until you've had a child, your breasts are not fully mature?
Yeah. So they're mature, but not fully mature to the point where they produce breast milk.
Okay.
Yes. So pregnancies, multiple pregnancies, breastfeeding for extended periods kind of reduce your risk, but it's a personal choice. So you can't tell someone, well, have kids. But so this is the thing, breast cancer is what you call a complex genetic trait. So there are so many things that contribute to you developing breast cancer.
So are there genetic tests that women can take, available for women with a family history of breast cancer? And what is the reliability of these tests?
Absolutely. Yeah, there are tests for that. In Ghana, we don't really have...
We don't have genetic tests.
So those who want to take it, the samples get taken out, but there are people developing, some of these tests, like one of this Yamachi Biotech, where I'm part of. But what happens to genetic tests?
Doc, you said that so lightly, but I think it's a very important point that you're making. You're part of the team trying to develop genetic tests for breast cancer.
So not just breast cancer. So the Yamachi Biotech is a cancer research discovery biotech in Ghana. And it's a startup. And one of the things we're interested in is understanding the genetic underpinnings of cancers in general.
Okay.
So ultimately, the plan is to now understand the differences, because it's a genetic disease. It does present racial variations. So, so ultimately, once we get to understand a little bit more about the cancers, we'll probably be able to offer that. But in the meantime, there are a couple of these labs that tend to send the samples out. So let me just describe what genetic testing is. So it's basically testing for maybe a risk for mutations or variations in a known gene. You mentioned family history.
Yeah.
So if you know for a fact that, okay, your parents had breast cancer. So this is a case of Angelina Jolie, right? She found that her mom died of breast cancer at the age of 55, which is considered a little bit low, especially in Caucasians.
Okay.
And so when she tested for the same mutation, it was, I think, one of the BRCA genes. She found out she had the mutation. So you can go to a lab where they take your saliva, or any tissue, essentially saliva, and then they can, like I mentioned, your DNA is identical throughout. But in the tumor, it actually has a lot of mutations. By a regular cell, you can find mutations that are germline or inherited. So you can go and test, and they can let you know. But the thing is, BRCA, of course, is not the only gene that has been involved. There are hundreds of genes that have been implicated. Yeah. Now, the difference here is some of the genes, most of the genetic studies that have been conducted on breast cancer are heavily Eurocentric in white people. Now, human beings evolved in Africa, and you had smaller populations, populate the rest of the world. So the majority of, so let's look at genetics. Not two people are genetically identical, only identical twins. And the only reason is that the same egg, the zygote, split into two people. But beyond that, no one is genetically identical. So looking at that, variation in your DNA, right? Imagine you have a population that, evolved in Africa. It had a smaller one. So the variation or the diversity of the DNA in the rest of the world, it's not as high as what you find in Africa, because the majority of the population remain there. So we are more genetically diverse. So although most of the studies have been, they're quite relevant, but they're not peculiar to our population, because the majority of the genetic variations, or they call polymorphisms, and all these change variations, I'm trying to break it down, in our DNA is higher in the African population.
Okay, Doc, I'm interested in knowing if all this knowledge and research that is going on is actually advancing the treatments for breast cancer.
Absolutely.
Is it?
Yeah, it is. It is. Because it's a genetic disease. These days, we are moving towards molecular medicine. Now, to understand and be able to treat a disease, you need to understand the molecular underpinnings. What is happening on the DNA level? Because it's a genetic disease. So if, let's say, you go for sequencing, so this is another thing. I talked about genetic testing. There's something called tumor profiling. So beyond just testing for one gene, you actually take the tumor and profile it. Because I mentioned that the breast cancer is caused by a number of mutations. So when you profile it, it gives you the genes that are driving the cancer. And now there are a lot of molecules and drugs that are being, developed. And so you've heard of precision medicine. They are more precise.
Right.
So this person is overexpressing the HER2 protein, has a mutation, the P10, BRCA2. Now there are molecules that actually target. You can target these pathways. So that's where the world is going. Okay. But if you don't understand the genetics, because it becomes difficult. And like I said, breast cancer presents with racial variations. We look different, so it's not surprising that. So if we can't rely solely on data that has been generated in white people. I mean, if you look at the reference genome that we use for studies, we realize that there are a lot missing once you sequence black people's DNA.
We should be wrapping up, but and I heard you on the fact that we do not actually have those tests here in Ghana, genetic tests in Ghana. But are there initiatives or institutions that are championing, if nothing at all, access to information, so healthcare providers understand that this is the way to go in terms of precision medicine, in terms of targeting genes and all that in dealing with breast cancer, and then maybe the information can trickle down to regular citizens like.
Of course, there's a lot going on. I studied breast cancer as a geneticist. We didn't really talk about my research, but in a nutshell, what I'm trying to understand are the germline inherited mutations and the somatic mutations that are driving breast cancer in Ghanaian women. All right. So I work at a number of hospitals, including Kolebu. We collect tumors and saliva, and we sequence them, the DNA, to see what the changes are. And we've actually found some new mutations that are peculiar to black people, and that's supposed to, inform precision medicine, because you can't just copy and paste from white people. And two, so there are a number of people doing research. Emachi is doing a lot of research in sequencing, and you mentioned one of my, the hats I wear as a deputy director for research and entrepreneurship at the West African Genetic Medicine Center. The problem in the country or this part of the world is genetic literacy is very low. We don't really know that much about genetics. I mean, we do understand genetics, but we don't do it. There's not a lot of, genetics going on. And so we've established, first of all, the first genetic counseling program in the sub-region. We don't have genetic counseling in the first cohort of students graduated I think in June or July. And we are going to be starting next year masters and PhD medical molecular genetics in Ghana at the West African Genetic Medicine University of Ghana. We've also had this other short courses.
I think I lost you for a second. Did you say genetic counseling?
Yes, is a genetic counseling, yes.
How pivotal is that in the conversation of breast cancer?
It's huge. So you mentioned genetic testing.
Yeah.
When you go, you want to, let's say you suspect you have a familial, or hereditary predisposition to breast cancer, and you see maybe a doctor later talk to a genetic counselor.
Yeah.
The genetic counselor will probably propose the kind of test you can do. You get tested, and they counsel you. It's beyond, say, it comes and you have a BRCA2 mutation. The genetic counselor is going to counsel you, what your options are, what your risks are, the rest of your family, how you pass it. That's what a genetic counselor does. Okay. So now that this part of the world, we are getting interested in genetics. It's very important to have. So genetic counselors also counsel people who are going to have children, you're pregnant, you're older, the chances of having, children with genetic defects. So those are what they do. But the other,
This will be my last question to you. How do you as an individual envision the role of genetic research evolving, and not just here in Ghana or Africa, but the rest of the world, in terms of the fight against breast cancer over the next decade? Do you think the research that we're doing and data that we're collecting and all that would actually bring us some results?
Absolutely. So we are playing catch up with more advanced countries, right?
Yeah.
They do their tumor profiling, and the doctor has this wide array of drugs that you can, access. So when we generate more data, in black people, we're able to understand the pathophysiology of the cancers, because the mutations influence the development, progression, even treatment. So
you mentioned that we are more diverse mutations here in Africa than the rest of the world.
Because genetically, in general, we are more diverse. Now, when you conduct research, genetic research like that, you're able to even identify therapeutic targets. There's this drug, tamoxifen, etc., that targets some of these, like the estrogen and whatnot. It's administered at Kolebu. They're able to target this thing. So with a peculiar, diversity, we are very likely to identify novel genes, novel mutations that will help us understand the genetic underpinnings. And we have to join the rest of the world in, developing precision medicine. So absolutely, you can't underestimate the importance of genetic research, because that's a blueprint. The way you look is because of your genetics.
Okay.
Yes. So
thank you so much, Dr. Lily. So, just to end this conversation, I'll give the chance to speak to our audience directly if there's something we left out. But are you saying that it's easier to manage breast cancer outside the continent than it is inside.
Absolutely, but not outside the continent is very big. It's big. We got the other part.
Okay, so Ghana, it's much more difficult to manage breast cancer in Ghana.
Ghana, say, compared to maybe the USA, is absolutely it's definitely. We don't have all the tools, but the doctors are doing fantastic job.
With you doing so much research, we can only hope that in a few years you'll be the solution that we are looking for. I'll give you a minute to, if there's something we've left out, if there's some important information, in fact, how we can even get more information on all this. Just 2 minutes, talk to us.
Okay, so one thing we didn't touch on was breast cancer awareness. So it happens to be one of the issues I'm really passionate about, because I remember when I was preparing my proposal, moving back, I was struck by the disproportionately high mortality rate in black women, not just black women, in Africa and in Ghana. And it's partly due to low awareness, partly. I mean, can add it, we have the more aggressive subtype as well. So we established a NUFU festival, the West African Genetic Medicine, with the West African Center for Cell Biology, WAGBIP.
Okay.
And we established the NUFU Fest, and it's been run...
NUFU Fest?
NUFU Fest, yeah. It's been run for the past 7 years, where we raise breast cancer awareness, we educate women, we provide free examination. Also part of Breast Society of Ghana, and we also, do that. So that's one thing I'd like to point out, that early detection saves lives. I talked about how the cells are over-proliferating.
Yeah.
So you need to catch it before it spreads. So it's linked to, the
early detection.
Exactly. So the early detection saves lives, and that's one thing the WHO, everyone is going to be harping on, because it makes absolute sense that if a cell is over-proliferating and it's a cancer cell, it grows unchecked, you need to seek early care, and then you, of course, better chance.
Yeah. I wish you had more time to get into that. I was really enjoying the conversation. Thank you so much. And that is Dr. Lily Paimka. She's Senior Lecturer, Department of Biochemistry, Cell and Molecular Biology, and the Deputy Director for Research and Entrepreneurship at West African Genetic Medicine Center. And we're talking about, we're trying to understand the genetic basis of breast cancer and where the intersection really is in terms of lifestyle and our genes. I hope you've been educated. Thank you so much, Doc, for joining us on the AM show.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, there's still a lot coming your way. You don't want to go away. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. We head into our big stories, and the National Democratic Congress is warning the Electoral Commission to abandon any attempts at re-collation, arguing that the EC has all the pink sheets of the 9 constituencies in contention in their custody to establish the veracity or otherwise of these declarations. Now, the EC in the presser yesterday had taken the decision outlining various infractions leading to the declaration of results in these constituencies. But the NDC accuses Madam Jean Mentor of panning to the dictates of President Akufo-Addo. We'll bring you some details of what they had to share. But let's come into the studio. We have Dr. Rashid Tanko joining the conversation. He is Deputy Head of IT and Research with the NDC. We also have joining the conversation Haruna Mohammed. He's the Deputy General Secretary of the NPP. Haruna, a very good morning to you. Do we have Haruna Mohammed? Can you hear me, Haruna? Okay, so we'll try to get to Haruna Mohammed, Deputy General Secretary, but here we have Dr. Rashid Tanko in the studio. Also joining the conversation, of course, my in-house guest, Sweetie Abochi. Sweetie?
Yes, Ben. Dr. Computer, so I think we have Haruna, but we'll have to circle back to Haruna. We've heard from the EC yesterday, and gladly we are going to hear from Dr. Computer in the studio this morning in terms of what really are your reservations when it comes to the re-collation of these, the results from these 12 constituencies, but 9 specifically. What are your issues?
Very well. Let me say good morning to your cherished viewers and to the good people of Bimbila. I wish them well. Dear, it's a simple, straightforward thing. The election is governed by CI 127. Everything about this year election and that of 2020. 2020 was governed by this. This year election is governed by the same CI. We have not amended this CI. So whatever we are doing this year is mirroring what happened in 2020. So what we couldn't do in 2020, you cannot do it in this year because the CR has not been amended. I'll give you an example. Why we are seriously against what they are doing, the illegality this electoral commission is perpetrating. In Techima South in 2020, there was vandalism. In fact, even people died at the collation center. In the midst of this vandalism, the returning officer was made to declare the MPP parliamentary candidates winner. So we said no. There was no proper collation because a lot of things happened. People's lives were lost. And so our leader then, Haruna Idrisu, Honorable Haruna Idrisu, wrote to Madam Jean Mensah asking for a recollation of the results. Madam Jean Mensah replied and indicated in the letter, we have the letter, if you have time I can read the letter, that recollation is allowed in all the process before declaration. But after declaration, recollation cannot be done. This was Madam Jean Mensah in 2020. So we said, fine, if that is your position, we have no, but that's why we abandoned the Techima South matter. Now in this year, collation has been done. In the process of the collation, none of the candidates asked for recollation. They waited until when the returning officers declared the results publicly, and that they've realized that they've lost the election miserably. They now ran to Madam Jean Mensah, asking for recollation. So, and they are acceding to that. What has changed? That's the question we are asking. What has changed? If you go and take PNDC law 284, where the CI came from, this is a mother law where the CI emanates from. Section 20 of it, how elections of parliamentary results are nullified. And it's specified very clear. I want to read the section 20 of that aspect for you to, and the general public, to see the illegality Madam Jean Mensah is involved in. And that's why she doesn't want you, the media, to ask her questions. I'm really, just give me a minute.
While you get to it, just...
20. I've seen it here.
Right.
That is section 20 of PNDC law 284. Grounds for cancelling election results. One of the grounds, the election of a candidate shall be declared void on an election petition if the High Court is satisfied that general bribery, general treating, general intimidation, which Madam Jean Mensah is saying that their returning officers were intimidated, that under duress, general intimidation or other misconduct or circumstances, whether similar to those specified in this law or not, have so extensively prevailed that they may be reasonably supposed to have affected the results of the election.
All right, you have.
Is it Madam Jean Mensah who has this power to interpret this?
Two things. You're saying that the call for recollation is not backed by Constitution.
It's not backed by
and that last election year, when you wrote to the Electoral Commission, she refused. And so you think that the NPP or whoever is challenging the results should go to court?
That is what we're saying. We are saying that.
Let's get to your counterpart on the other side, and then we'll come back in the studio. Haruna, good morning. Can you hear us?
Good morning, sweet.
Great. Ben was coming to you in a bit. Ben.
Okay.
Haruna, so you've heard some of the reasons, the ground for which the NDC feels that recollation shouldn't happen, and that the EC is being hypocritical because, like he mentioned, in 2020 in Techiman South, there was that incident. And in fact, the leader then of the NDC caucus, Haruna Idrisu, wrote to the EC asking for recollation on the back of what had happened. And people died there. Over there, nothing like that happened. Are you against this call?
Thank you very much. I will say good morning to your cherished viewers and good morning to my brother, Dr. Sanko Rashid. I think that the Electoral Commission's decision yesterday was a decision that was apt and a request made by us from the count of the votes from the elections. We all saw what happened in terms of how the NDC youth went to vandalize election materials, went to burn pink sheets that had been sealed in boxes, and or in some situations where they have been collated at the centers. one thing that we have to get correct is that not all the 9 constituencies have been declared already. Some of them have not been declared just at all because they have not been collated. So there are collations that are ongoing, and these coalition centers have been vandalized. These coalition centers have been interrupted by hoodlums of the NDC, and that is what we're talking about. In areas that declarations have been made, the Electoral Commission is very specific on those matters, that these were done at the request of some of these political parties, and specifically the NDC, and some were asked to choose between their life or their position to become members of parliament. And this is not the country that we know. This is not the democracy that we have all natured. And I believe that this very CI that we are using for the elections is the purpose of which the Electoral Commission is calling that they should be given adequate security, because a party that does not believe in the rule of law, a party that does not believe in the processes, is a party that has won elections, and they want to disrupt everything in this country.
Are you being fair? Are you being fair? Are you being fair and addressing
elections one day?
Haruna,
and they should not cry more than any other person if they lose elections and it comes onto their doorsteps.
Right. Are you being fair in your rhetoric? Are you being objective when you say a party that does not believe in the rule of law, they are rowdy, they engage in thuggery and all of that? You've heard the president-elect talk about the fact that these actions, whatever form they may have taken, are condemnable. They don't support it. The party has come out to say that. So your rhetoric is
so
objective.
What is the question of being fair? Did it happen or it did not? Or what is the definition of fairness? Did it happen or it did not?
I see. So on the back of that, it's the
so it happened. So Benjamin, sometimes that is why when I come on this show, some of your questions, maybe when they are censored, you get to understand that it ought not to be asked. I cannot dictate to you on your
leave that discretion to me.
But the question
you can
of
decide what to answer, but leave the discretion to me.
The question of fairness here is that did it happen or it did not? It happened. Are they belonging to the NDC or not? They are belonging to the NDC. Okay. When we lost elections in 2008, did you see us go to vandalize coalition centers? Did you see us destroy pink sheets? Did you see us do those things? When they lost elections, did you see us brutalize them? Did you see us? But this is the first time we are seeing coalition centers that is manned by security, and coalition has to be disrupted, things has to be bent. This is what we are seeing. He's saying that if the elections are declared, you have to go to court. You don't need to come and do those things. You should read the CI. You should go and read CI, the CI 127 Regulation 43.
Let me take you the
Regulation 43 to A. These results has to be published, gazetted before you can go to court. The Electoral Commission is telling you that those declarations were not done properly in line with the CI. And that is it. So once it is not done, and that is our position. When we met at Tesano, we made it very clear. But I can see that the NTC is taking a different thing, and they are saying that they are attacking and they are daring people. Let us put it on record. If they want to govern, they should govern. If they want to get a state of anarchy and this country will not be governed, we will help them to do that.
You will help them to achieve a state of anarchy in Ghana, I say.
They should stop it. They should stop warning state institutions as if they own everything. They should stop it. We are living in a democracy where we have to all make sure that we contribute our quota. Right. If a state institution is telling you something based on law, and you are saying that you will not agree, and you dare the president, they should stop those things.
All right, hold for me. Hold for me.
All well for us in this country.
Hold for me, Haruna. Hold for me. Let me bring in Dr. Tanko Computer. How do you react, especially the issue of gazetting has come to the fore, juxtaposing 2020, what happened, and now, what are the differences?
You see, my brother is choosing when it suits them. When it doesn't suit them, they run behind the law and start talking plenty. You know what? The Electoral Commission is a conveyor belt in the matter of parliamentary election. When I say conveyor belt, if you look at the regulation it's referring to, if you come to regulation 43.2, that is where the commission comes in. The business of gazetting is only the commission. That's their business. Their business is to receive the writ and gazette same. They have no business in interfering what writ they have brought to them. Read, and I'm going in public, I would even allow you to read it because they will think that I am the one manufacturing it.
You read it.
I'll read for you. The commission, that's 43.2, the commission shall, on receipt of the endorsed writ, who endorses it? Is it not the returning officer? He endorses and returns it to them. What do they do with it? Publish in the Gazette a notice stating the name of the person elected and the total number of votes cast for each candidate, and inform the clerk to Parliament soon after that of the name of the candidate elected. That's all. Did they say that the commission can validate the results and look at the recount and all that?
Once the collation is done,
a collation is done, and announcement, they have no business. There is to Gazette and inform Parliament. Now they are interfering into an arena they don't have that power. By saying that we are
just stay with me. I want you guys to take it bit by bit. So once collation is done, you know who has won. You go ahead, declare the winner.
Declare the winner. And the Gazette.
Whatever happens after that, if there's a challenge, the person should go to the High Court.
High Court.
Okay, so that's your response.
That is what the PNDC law 284.
Is there anything else you want to say? Because I want to go back to Haruna,
what I want
that
to
specific
say,
point.
I want to say is that the NDC is not lawless as they want us to believe. We went to court first. Remember when this matter came and we're at a Tesano, we went to court. Our director
filed for a writ.
We filed for a writ, a process to stop the illegality they are doing. We followed up with another writ, filed against the re-collation of 5 constituencies. If we're lawless, the thing would have gone to court. Because we realize that what the EC is doing is, look, they are acting ultra vices because they don't have that power. And therefore, we want the High Court to call them to order. Yet, this EC is defying this. When the media met them, you see, they refused to take questions because they wanted to ask them questions about this writ that we have filed. They said they won't take questions. They ran away. They are looking for security to come and help them to involve themselves in this illegality. That is why we are saying, and the law is very simple. Look at the Constitution. If somebody is involved in an illegality and security is not around to prevent it, what do you do? What do? You prevent the person from committing such illegality. That is why we've asked the court. They should respect the court. This morning we are in court. They should come there. They have their lawyers. They should stop this illegality that they are involved in. They don't have that power. That is what we are saying.
Look, you know, I think both of you are arguing procedural illegalities or inconsistencies, right? You say that results have been declared, go to court, don't recollate. And they're saying that the processes that led to the declaration in itself is, you know, faulty. And so everybody's asking or looking for a way to fill those gaps that are existing. Now, the Electoral Commission is the body mandated to handle all these issues. And they're saying, to be on the safer side, let's just recollate the results. What could be terribly wrong if they did that?
Dear, you cannot just sit down and manufacture law to yourself. The country is governed by...
Yeah, but you see where I started from. You're all arguing with the law, yes, but you're all talking about inconsistencies. You say that don't recollate because the law says don't recollate. He's saying, Haruna is saying that the processes that led to the declaration of those results is faulty because some people were, you know, ballot papers were snatched. He's told us the side of the story. Now, the Electoral Commission, who is the head of all this, is saying that to be on the safer side, let's just recollate. What could be terribly wrong? If you are sure that your numbers have not been, you know, tampered with, what could be so wrong if the EC recollates the results? So everyone has clarity and transparency in terms of who actually won the elections in these constituencies.
What was terribly wrong in 2020 when she wrote back to us that if she won't do recollation of Techimasa? What was terribly wrong with that? You see that because the MPP was winning the seat, that's why she didn't find any reason why she should do the recollation. You see, we have a principle in this country. She wrote back to us based on this regulation 43 of CI system. The procedure was very clear, and that's why she was confident enough to indicate to us that I am not going to do any recollation so long as the declaration was made.
The EC chair is being hypocritical on this matter?
Completely hypocritical. There's no word for that other than hypocritical. Because what they are doing, they are not principled. We must be principled in whatever we are doing. And I'm saying that we are not in the jungle. This country is governed by...
She mentions that at the close of polls on Saturday the 7th, there was a directive by some political party leaders to their supporters to besiege the collation centers of the EC where the collation was taking place. There's a wrong spelling here. The directive to the supporters to besiege the constituency collation centers was targeted at destroying documentary evidence, pink sheets, and it goes on and on. And she says the presence of hundreds of supporters who besieged the collation centers brought proceedings to a standstill in a number of the centers. In some instances, they vandalized and destroyed the desktop computers set up to collate the results electronically. She's saying on the back of some of these, where some of the electoral officers even had to make declarations under duress. You know, technically in law, if you do something under duress, it is invalid. What's your response to that?
I've just read PNDC law 284, section 20 for you. When such things happens, you know the arena to go. It doesn't lie in the mouth of Madam.
So what you're basically saying is that even if, hold for me, even if there was wrong, there are mechanisms to take care of that wrong, and you are not the one to try and play the role of the court. That's what you're saying.
That is what I'm saying. I'm saying that what they are doing, it doesn't lie in their mouth as commissioners to constitute themselves into judges and determining whether the declaration was so made under duress.
Hold for me. Let me bring in Haruna Mohammed. Haruna, how do you react? How do you react to these statements from
Benjamin?
Yeah.
My brother is a senior member of the NDC. I know the knowledge that he has and how he has followed elections. He has been a director of elections for the northern region for a long time, and I applaud him for that. He knows the process. In 2004, he was in existence. He was a director. I don't know whether still on the director of elections. In Yeji, results were declared for an MPP candidate. Dr. Kojo Afarijan insisted that there should be a re-collation because in his belief, the collation was not done based on the laws at the time. Re-collation was...
You are talking about what, 2004? Is it 2004?
And a declaration, yes, and a declaration was made for the NDC. So I don't know where this hypocritical stance comes from.
But Haruna, hold for me briefly. Even barring that, the letter of the law, at least as far as CI 127 is concerned, states differently. It is categorical on what ought to be done. So even if it was done in 2004, this is CI 127. This is what it says. You can't apply the same thing here. Hello, Haruna.
I think he's breaking up.
Haruna, are you with me? Haruna, can you hear me? If you can hear me, go ahead. I think the network has an issue. But the point, once we get Haruna back, we'll take his final words on this and go. But the point I was making was, I mean, if in the past it was applied, this is a new CI. This is CI 127. And what it says suggests that you must go to the High Court. In this instance, though, I have a quick question for you. The very first interview Jean Mensah, when she became EC chair granted, was to me, actually, many years ago. And I asked her an interesting question back then. This was, what, 2016, thereabouts, that would she... No, this was after that. Would she be concerned if she were removed, just as Charlotte Osei was removed? And she said, well, I mean, she had no problem with that. These actions, I've heard some of you in the NDC speak to the issues. Is Jean Mensah setting herself up for removal through these actions?
I read
NDC...
I will come to that point. But you see, I was happy you were asking my brother.
And, yes. And he's back now, so let him answer the question and then I'll come to you. Haruna, can you hear me now?
Yes, please. You
can hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you, Benjamin.
Yes, I was merely saying that whatever applied in 2004, we have CI 127 now, and CI 127 says something specific, and you know that. So I don't know why the reference to that, though.
Okay, Benjamin, you know, Doctor is somebody that I believe when I make references to him, he appreciates what I am saying. We are all speaking on the position of the law. The law says, he read CI 127, Regulation 43. he went to Regulation 43(2)(a), and he said you should read it, that the commission shall, on receipt of an endorsed rate.
Right.
I want him to clarify to you what is the rate. Is the rate the same as the pink sheet? And whether there was a rate that was endorsed by the returning officer to the Electoral Commission. There was no rate. Up to now, there has not been rate from the returning officers to the Electoral Commission for them to gazette. We are dealing with pink sheets. He knows that the same regulation, Regulation 39, 3B, we have copies of those pink sheets, irrespective of the distraction, irrespective of the vandalism, irrespective of the way and manner these pink sheets are tempered. We have copies of those particular pink sheets. Again, if you read the same Regulation 43, G or F, each candidate or the representative or counting agent of the candidate complete and sign a copy of the Parliamentary Election Results Collation form as set out in Form 1C, and also as also set out in Form 1D, which is the summary. We have copies of these things. Why are we giving copies in the wisdom of the law? We are giving copies because there can be anything that can happen with the original copies. That we can come together with the copies we have, verify them. Do you know the reason why we brought photocopies of those particular documents? Because when you are eating with the devil, you have to eat with a long spoon. You don't go with your hand. Eat with a long spoon. Because these are people who have gone around to destroy pink sheets. We have copies of that. We have scanned them, and we will keep photocopies, and we will always retrieve our original copies. The law is the law. Whether the law was 2004, it was the law. The law in 2024 is still the law. And that is the procedure. So let's all agree. Let's make sure that the infractions, as reported by the Electoral Commission, who is mandated by law to supervise and make declarations in that intent, tells us that this is what it is. In applicable law, how can you collate results and leave out over 40 polling stations and coerce the person to declare in your favor? Tomorrow, Benjamin, if I contest and I win in five polling stations, I'm able to put the Electoral Commissioner under duress, under a gunpoint, ask him to collate only the 5 and declare.
I don't know about being held
and then
on.
The law will say that okay.
I don't know about being held at gunpoint.
Based on the 5 polling stations, I have to go to court.
Haruna, I don't know about being held at gunpoint, but it also makes sense just in the same way that even before the declaration of the EC on the presidential, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia came out, because once, if you look at the difference and the rest of the centers to be collated, and if it will not make a difference in the vote in terms of the gap, that is allowed. But Dr. Rashid Tanko, you have the final word, and then answer the bit about
yes, very well. You see, in 2004, yes, I was then the regional director, Northern Region, and we recollated some constituencies because the CI made room for recollation. The CI at that time made room for recollation. So that's why
that was the point I was trying to
beautiful. And so that's why I'm saying that even when we met the IGP and the Venerable Macmillan raised that, we told him that, look, you are confusing the Electoral Commission with this kind of thing. Those old CIs had made room for recollation. This current CI does not make room for recollation. So you cannot bring that one here and be wasting everybody's time. What you are doing is illegal. It's not in the law. Let's stop it there. Look, the writ is talking about 1B.
You have to be brief.
Yes, the 1B is not given to political parties. So where is my friend getting it from? It means the commissioners are communicating with the MPP. The writ that is sent back by the returning officer to the commission for gazetting is not given to political parties.
So you're saying they are colluding?
It means, where is he saying that it has not been sent?
Because they are in possession of copies of it.
It means, where did they get it from? They don't have it. 1B is not given to any political party. It's a writ given to you to go and conduct election.
But Haruna, where did you get those copies from?
Where did you get 1B? If he has 1B, he should let us know. It means they are colluding with these people.
He made reference to the law, and he says that the rate has to be when it is submitted. And I asked, the pink sheet is what we
No, Haruna, we don't have time. Just answer for me. Where did you get the Form 1B from? The Form 1B, where did you get it from?
Which one?
The Form 1B he's referencing.
Form 1C and Form 1D is giving copies to parties and county.
No, it's not given. That's the writ. The writ is sent back to the commission. It's not given to parties.
Yeah, so
What we are all talking about here is the rate.
So why
I'm asking him. He said the commission shall, on receipt of an endorsed rate. I am asking him, has there been submission of any rate?
All right, gentlemen, we have to end the conversation here. Any response on the Jean Mensah question?
Oh, no, well, I mean, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama is not a vindictive type. He's not that type. I mean, what will happen is that everybody will be judged based on your performances and all that as he come in. I mean, he's not that type. That will just say that because you are Jean Mensah, leave the place. That's not it. I mean, when they came, they said it was...
Talking of illegality, I'm asking you that on the back of some of these alleged illegalities.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Everybody will measure based on your performance. Are you getting it? Charlotte was moved based on what? Procurement breaches. Is that not it? If somebody also decide to say that, okay, I've seen that this woman is involved in some illegal activities or some breaches and bring a petition to the president, he's a conveyor belt. They'll look at it. If there's prima facie matter to be looked at. So he's not that type. The president is not a vindictive type. Everybody will measure based on your performance.
Then let's wrap. I just wonder if both parties are convinced that this has actually left the desk of the Electoral Commission, then both of them go to court and fix it. But it appears someone is still looking to the Electoral Commission while the other party is looking to the courts. But that's all that time will allow us to
well, Dr. Rashid Tanko Computer is head of IT and elections, deputy director, yes, deputy director with the NDC. And of course, we also had the Deputy General Secretary of the MPP, Haruna Mohammed, joining the conversation. Stick and stay with us. We'll be right back. There are some institutions in the country doing great things. One of them, Academic City University. And they recently got chartered. And well, here they are in the studio joining the conversation. Their president, Professor Fred Makbagon-Luri, is in the studio with me. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Thanks
and congratulations on this latest feat. You've been around for what, some 5 years?
Yeah, 5 years.
Just about 5 years?
Just about 5 years.
And you've chartered now?
Yeah, so I would say 7 years. We've been running this for 7 years now. And we are chartered, probably one of the earliest to do so.
Yeah, within a very short time frame. But what has it taken to be able to do this within this very short period?
So, we started Academic City with a clear mandate, to live every spirit of the regulatory framework. We had two good mentors, University of Cape Coast and University of Mines and Technology, and working with our affiliates, following the GTEC guidelines, good support from GTEC as well, and the determination to make sure that we become a fully fledged university within the shortest possible time was the driver.
And you've achieved that?
Yes, absolutely.
How did you, you must have been on the grind to get this done.
I was on the grind, I taught when I had to teach. I developed processes and policies if I had to do so. For me, it has been hands-on. It's always been hands-on.
I see. And how does this place you now? Now that you're chartered, you are no longer Academic City University College.
Absolutely.
You are now Academic City University.
Yes. So
how does it place you among the other, top-notch institutions?
We are going to play in the big league now. We are no longer
the big league.
We are no longer a minor league.
Right.
I think the opportunity to offer our own degrees, the opportunity to do programs that we deem fit, based on our understanding of the tertiary education landscape is significant. Most of the time when you are under mentorship, you have to do programs that your mentors are doing because that's the only way they can actually mentor you. But this gives us the freedom to explore big ideas and to also follow global trends in higher education and pedagogy. And I think that is the liberation we are so excited about.
Now, if you look at the current educational landscape, what do you see in terms of quality? What are some of the challenges?
I'm a strong believer in the Ghanaian educational system. I mean, I've traveled, worked around the world. I've hired people educated in Ghanaian universities. We are all products of it. I think it has worked for its intended purposes, and sometimes we forget that our educational system started at a point where we needed to replace colonial officers that were leaving.
Right.
And so we were producing employees, and we've succeeded in doing that for 60, 70 years. The challenge we have now is that we've overproduced employees. We need to start producing employers. And I think that is where entrepreneurship comes in. That is where I think global trends in AI, robotics, the things that actually give jobs are the focus that we need to focus on now. I think there is room to do that. I don't think we are behind. I don't think our educational system is defective. I just think that we need to reroute our aspirations. It needs to be a little more intentional.
I see. But speaking of these, and you deliver holistic training at Academic City University, but if you look at the tertiary level, right, training must not leave you half-baked. It must leave you as an entity that can walk into any space and not just survive, but thrive.
Absolutely.
How relevant are our curricula in the tertiary institutions when it comes to the job market, when it comes to the current global trends?
So, you know, I worked in Singapore for a while, and one interesting thing I saw, and the educational system for most looks like ours, but what they would do is the postgraduate training. So I used to receive 3 Singaporeans every year when I worked for Siemens, and they would spend a year with me. And the Singaporean government will actually pay for their room and board and transportation. And Siemens' commitment at the time was to hire 50 of those graduates every year. So I think where we are missing is that there's not been that intentionality. We are looking at universities to churn total complete products. And that is not possible within the 4-year space. Now, how we are solving this at Academic City is we have a workshop that looks like the real world. So we simulate the real world within our curriculum. We have labs. We get students to do project-based learning. And that is how we augment for this lack of intentionality postgraduate to train people for the workforce.
I see. That's interesting, because one of the complaints that people usually, bring to the bear is that these young ones come into institutions and they seem to be at a loss as to what life work is all about, and a lot of training has to be done. But speaking of this intentionality, let's feed that into your undergraduate programs. What undergraduate programs do you run, and how do they prepare students for not just the job market, but the global village?
So we have 3 faculties now: the engineering faculty, the business school, basically, and then we have informatics and computational sciences. And I think we are the only university now that does an undergrad in AI and in robotics. And of late, you've seen the explosion in the global marketplace of what AI is capable, would do. And so we offer AI. We've preempted this revolution by ensuring that our students are part of this wave. Also, you look at robotics, the future of industrialization is in robotics. And Ghanaian students are very good at winning competition. And what we are doing with the robotics program is to say, do you know what happens when passion and professionalism intersect? Now, going forward, we're looking at designing programs in electric vehicles, because they are here and they will come soon, right? Whether we like it or not, automobile engines are going, and electric vehicles and green technologies are coming. And we are anticipating that already. We have drones here for Zipline. We're going to do an undergraduate degree in drone technology.
Wow.
And so the space we've been playing right now is the biomedical space, the robotic space, and the AI. And if you put these 3 together, it's quite interesting, because you're going to generate a lot of data. And so that is where our data science program comes in. How do you take that data and use that to make decisions? And then you need to protect that data. So our master's program in cybersecurity comes into play as well. But in addition to the revolution in the engineering space, we have communication arts and journalism, we have advertising and marketing, as well as HR. I think we have a unique program in entrepreneurship, where we encourage students to come into the program with an idea that they want to explore for the 4 years that they are at Academic City. In the School of Informatics, one of our fastest growing programs is computer science and IT. And AI also sits within the same space. So we are trying to look at global trends. We are trying to look at big ideas. We're looking at our national educational policy itself with the emphasis on STEM. But STEAM is what we are looking at. How do you bring the arts and the science together? Because the arts is fundamental. Without the arts is where you interrogate nature, where you ask the questions.
It's like the glue binding.
Exactly. And STEM is just tools.
So all of these things set you apart, don't they? In terms of pedagogy, in terms of innovation, teaching and learning experience.
Absolutely.
And now you have this master's in cybersecurity, the master's in data science.
Absolutely.
And, analytics and all of that.
Yeah.
In the end, you've chartered now. What does it mean, not just for Academic City, but learning, teaching in Ghana?
So, you know, I can't wait come June to hand Academic City certificates to my students.
Fully Academic City.
Fully Academic City certificates. I think charter gives us the opportunity to explore, as I indicated, you know, what are the next trends in PhD, master's programs, what is industry looking for, what is the global marketplace looking for, and these are things that we need to anticipate. So when I talk about intentionality of higher education, you need to understand what is happening in the global marketplace. One of my students just got hired by Apple in London, you know, a 20-year-old, the only management trainee from the continent this year.
Wow.
Now, when I was 20, I was a sixth former at St. Augustine's College. So that is remarkable. And I think we need to get these kids out there to get some global experience. I do what I do because of the experience I got studying somewhere else.
Wow. Congratulations once more. We have to wrap it up in maybe some 20 seconds, final words before we go.
Academic City is open for admissions. You can reach us at www.act, that's acity.edu.gh, or you can get us on our number 055-101-4444. We look forward to seeing your awards at Academic City.
Thank you, Prof, for joining the conversation. That is Professor Fred Magbagonlori. He's president of Academic City University. And if you're thinking of not just STEM, but proper STEAM education, make your way there. Well, do stay with us. We'll be back after the break.
Welcome back to the AM show. Let's have a conversation with a very gorgeous woman, Prophetess Shalitha Sanders. She's a mental health specialist, founder of YES or Yes Entrepreneur, philanthropist, and leading lady of Faith Empowerment Center in Ohio. And she's representing Nyamiba Foundation this morning on the AM show. Welcome, Prophetess.
Thank you.
I'm shocked to know that you're a prophetess. How's that? How do you combine that, you know, ministerial work and the other things that demand your time?
Well, priority. I have to say that, prioritizing a lot, and then practicing self-care. So that's important, because I believe if we don't take care of ourselves, how can we take care of others?
I love that. Straight to the point too, huh? So let's talk about Nyamiba Foundation. What do you do?
Yeah, so we are a nonprofit. We've been doing this since 2022. Let me say that. And so what we are trying to do is to make an impact all over the world, specifically here in the continent of Africa. So 2022, we fed over 450 kids in Bubwashi. And then
I grew up in Bubwashi.
Did you? Okay. And then last year we fed over 2,000. So on the 21st, which is tomorrow, we'll be feeding 10,000 in Jamestown. So yes.
That's ambitious.
Yes.
10,000.
Yes, by God's grace. And so we have partners all over the world, and we are going to be providing hygiene products, maxi pads, tampons, toothbrushes, care packages, education, and we'll be feeding everybody on tomorrow.
So who's invited? Or who are you feeding? Young people, children, elderly people?
The entire community.
Okay.
And so we were told, because we partner with OIM Ghana here in Ghana, and so they told us that there was a need. And because they said there was a need, I said, okay, let's just feed the entire community. So of course, my husband and I and the entire church, we just came together with our partners, and so we are going to make that happen on tomorrow.
How long have you been in the country this time? Because you said last year and last 2 years you fed some people. So how long have you been here?
Yeah, so our first time coming was in 2022.
Oh, you're staying here?
No. So, but I just wanted to tell you, we stayed for about 2 weeks, right? Because before, back home, we seen everything on TV talking about bears and lions and everything. This is what we were told.
Yeah.
Then we got here, it's like, oh my God, this is just like home. And everybody looks like me. How about that? So, so since this time we've come back, it's been 5 weeks.
Okay. I do want to find out, you are also a mental health specialist.
Yes.
Do you think that this season, festivities, Christmas and all that, it's more difficult for children out there in the streets in terms of their mental health? Have you experienced any of such incidents?
Exactly. So as a counselor, I will tell you this. When I'm counseling individuals during this season, this holiday season, depression is at an all-time high. Anxiety is at an all-time high. And when kids are not able to receive gifts or receive that love because parents have to go out, work 3 or 4 jobs, it impacts their mental health. Just like with adults, you know, they dread to go around family members during this season. They don't have that mama that is off the chain. They have that family member that gets on their nerve. And so
they don't want to be judged. Most people just don't want to be judged, you know.
Right. And so you're catching up, right? Yeah. And so when they come together, they're catching up on what happened, be it last month or a week ago. And so to come around that, it impacts anxiety. And I have a lot of clients who say, I'm dreading going around my family members during the holiday season. So it does impact not just the children, but adults as well.
Okay, so as a woman who wears many hats, and this is just to wrap up the conversation, what would be your Christmas message, or what would be, you know, just words of encouragement to young people, in fact, everyone watching us this morning? What would you say to them?
I would say to believe in yourself. Because we have a lot of individuals who are not authentic. And I believe in authenticity looks good on everyone when you believe in yourself and you do what God has called you to do. And stop trying to do what everybody else is doing so that you'll be able to walk in your purpose. We're about to go into 2025. 2025 is going to look different than what 2024 looked like.
Absolutely.
So God said he'll do a new thing. And so we have to walk in it.
You're preaching to the choir. Let's circle back to the details of what's happening tomorrow, and then it will be a wrap. So tomorrow, what time are you starting? I know you're going to Jamestown. You're hoping to feed about 10,000 people, and it's Ghana Kids Festival 2024.
Yes.
So let's get the details out there. Is there a number to call? Those who are interested to support, I don't know if you're still looking for support. How do they get in touch with you?
So you can go to the website, www.faithempowermentcenter.org.
And there you have it on your screens.
Yes. And also the festivity starts around 9 a.m. If you want to volunteer, you can come out. You have to be there before 7 a.m. so you can get a t-shirt. But we're going to be there practically all day. We have dancers, we have musicians, we have people that are going to do a spoken word. We're giving away laptops. So we're doing a lot on that day.
Okay. Well, congratulations in advance, and I wish you the very best. And I'll give you just 30 seconds to say bye to our audience. I'm enjoying talking to you.
So I want to say bye to everyone. Thank you for having me again. And I love Ghana. Ghana, I love you. And I'm so glad I'm here. I feel at home. This is the only place that I feel like I belong. And thank you so much.
Okay, hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. So that there is Prophetess Shalitha Sanders. She's a mental health specialist, founder of YES. Is it YES or Yes?
Yes.
YES. Oh, Yes Group. Okay. And she's also a philanthropist, a leading lady of Faith Empowerment Center, Ohio, and of course, Nyameba Foundation, and they're feeding 10,000 young people tomorrow at Jamestown. Do well to pass by if you have the time. Thank you for watching the AM show. Ben and I are coming back in a bit to wrap up. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Since you will not be here, she says she needs momocetamol. So
yes, plenty money.
She has malaria. So you can send her some momocetamol. But that's how we cap off the show today.
And I just want to put this out. I mean, aside the mobile money that I'm looking for, I want videos, you know, just record yourself and say something nice to me and tag me on social media. I would love to see what you people have to say. Yes, and I'm a Christmas baby, so I enjoy doing this. Thank you all so much.
Santa came early to her, but this is how we cap off the AM show this morning. My name is Benjamin Akakpo.
And I'm Sweetie Abochi. So I see you next time. Mwah.
Stay tuned for Joy News Desk.